Chapter 905. Teacher, I won't be joining in the fun with you. The plane landed at Beijing Airport. Although it was early in the night, Poplar Fruit could see the flashing lights of many reporters and interview vehicles through the window. He turned around and smiled at Old Master Mo. After you've attracted the attention of the reporters, Kiki and I will take a flight back to Yangcheng. Kiki, who could finally unbuckle her seatbelt, climbed up from the chair and jumped happily. She imitated her father by placing her arms on the back of the chair to talk. However, the little girl was too short. Even if she jumped, she could not see what was behind the chair. Sigh, why did I take in such a heartless disciple? Old Master Mo shook his head. Although he sighed again and again, he was still smiling brightly. Although he was indifferent to fame and fortune, human nature was a little vain. Old Master Mo was much better than others. Don't jump around. Get ready to go home later. Poplar Fruit smiled and carried Kiki. Haven't you been missing Sister Bebe for a long time? I want to go home. I want to go home. Kiki shouted happily. She had become more lively recently and seemed to have entered the active stage. She did not care about the environment. Her crisp voice rang throughout the cabin. I'll go first. Old Master Mo smiled and waved at Poplar Fruit. He pulled his suitcase and walked forward. His wife and daughter followed him. Old Master Mo's daughter was much older than Poplar Fruit. She smiled and held Kiki's hand. Kiki, remember to come to Auntie's house with your father when you're free. Old Master Mo returned home full of praise. Standing in the middle of the cabin, Poplar Fruit could hear the noise outside. Perhaps only the country's leaders had the opportunity to receive such a welcome and interview. It would be a lie to say that he was not envious. Although Poplar Fruit was also pursued by foreign entertainment reporters in Sweden, the honor they brought to Poplar Fruit was very little. Caring about your personal life and caring about your honor were two different things. Kiki, put on your clothes. We're leaving. Poplar Fruit wrapped Kiki in a thick down jacket and a scarf. Papa hug. Kiki didn't like this feeling. Because she was dressed too clumsily, she couldn't even stand properly, so she could only rely on her father to carry her. Poplar Fruit carried his daughter with one hand and dragged his suitcase with the other. He secretly mixed in with the other passengers and left. Up ahead, Old Master Mo and his family were surrounded by layers upon layers of people. They were like dumplings, unable to move an inch. There were also a few scattered reporters who were interviewing some tourists passing by on the same plane. Poplar Fruit carried Kiki, lowered his head, and hurriedly left with his suitcase. He could still avoid the reporters, but if he was entangled with them, he probably wouldn't be able to return to Yangcheng in the middle of the night. Suddenly, Poplar Fruit heard a voice calling out to him. Poplar Fruit? Poplar Fruit, wait, can you answer two of our questions? Poplar Fruit didn't stop walking. He pretended not to hear and turned into the connecting passage. At the same time, Kiki, who had been hiding in her father's arms like an ostrich to avoid the cold wind, came out. Her big eyes looked around and she happily said to her father, Papa, someone is called Poplar Fruit. Fortunately, Yanghua had already hidden in the transfer tunnel, shaking off the reporters who were about to catch up. He turned his head and smiled at Chi-Chi. Don't worry about them. But they're called Poplar Fruit. Kiki suspiciously pressed on her father's shoulder and looked back. If you want to talk to them, you might not be able to go home tonight. Poplar Fruit said to Kiki with a smile. Kiki, do you want to stay in Beijing? No. Kiki immediately felt the same hatred as her father. She hugged her father's neck and used the scarf to rub against her father as she shouted. Kiki wants to go home. It won't be cold when I'm home. Poplar Fruit secretly laughed in his heart. How can it not be cold when I'm home? He heard from Fang Beibei that Yangcheng was also cold because it rained twice during winter. Poplar Fruit sat on the plane back to Yangcheng. The news of him escaping from the reporters was exposed on Weibo. Although this news wasn't eye-catching, and the headlines in the country were all about Old Master Mo's return, there were still many netizens who paid attention to Poplar Fruit who cried out that it was a pity. Poplar Fruit's fame overseas was too great. Furthermore, there were netizens overseas who posted videos of Poplar Fruit calmly translating Old Master Mo's speech without a script. When this video was reposted, it was worshipped by a group of fans. Although there were some who doubted that Poplar Fruit had already translated the speech, this doubt was quickly dispelled by another video. This was a video of Old Master Mo being interviewed by a reporter. Poplar Fruit was also translating. Whether it was English, Swedish, Spanish, French, German, Asian languages, Korean, etc., he could easily translate them all. A student from Beijing University who studied languages sighed. This person should only exist in the heavens. It's rare to see someone like him in this world. Poplar Fruit's Weibo followers increased by a lot. This time, a large proportion of them were high-quality and educated fans. This was a rare phenomenon in the era of entertainment to death. This didn't seem to affect Poplar Fruit because Poplar Fruit was sitting quietly on the plane, watching an in-flight movie with Kiki. He was preparing to return to Yangcheng after watching a pleasant goat movie. However, this seemed to have a strange effect on Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit thought that he had only informed Fang Beibei, and Fang Beibei insisted on picking her up at the airport. Poplar Fruit was afraid that it wouldn't be safe, so he asked Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin to drive her over. However, this was only Poplar Fruit's assumption. In a newly rented hotel apartment in Yangcheng, Zheng Yujie had just finished showering. She was lying on the bed, scrolling through Weibo on her tablet. As she scrolled through, she saw the news about Poplar Fruit. When she saw the photo of Poplar Fruit hugging Kiki and sneaking away, Zheng Yujie smacked the bed and laughed without caring about her image. He's already so old. He's still so naughty. Zheng Yujie shook her head. Under her shirt, her long, bare legs gently hooked over and kicked her perky butt. This direction must be a turning point, right? Is he coming back to Yangcheng overnight? Zheng Yujie looked carefully at the photo. When she called Poplar Fruit's phone, it was already turned off. It must be. Zheng Yujie checked the nearest flights from Beijing to Yangcheng. She muttered to herself. Coming back in the middle of the night? Can you get a taxi? It's not safe to bring a child. Forget it. I have nothing to do at night anyway. Zheng Yujie sat up and stretched lazily. Her shirt pulled up, revealing her cute little belly button. I'll pick you up. I can also try out the new car. This was going to be fun. Chapter 906. We're here. Kiki fell asleep on the way back to Yangcheng. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but take a nap with his daughter in his arms. When the stewardess woke him up to fasten his seatbelt, he looked out the window at the brightly lit city. Yangcheng was already beneath him. After getting off the plane, Poplar Fruit put on his hat and sunglasses and walked close to the wall. He looked around vigilantly, worried that there would be reporters. Luckily there weren't any. However, when he arrived at the arrival gate, Poplar Fruit's scalp went numb. It wasn't because he saw reporters, but because he saw something even more terrifying. Two women walked towards him at the same time. The one on the right was Fang Beibei. Because of the incident on the internet, she looked a little haggard. However, wearing the same down jacket as the one on Yangguo's body, her thin body was hidden in the thick clothes, making Yangguo feel pity for her and want to immediately integrate her into her arms. The one on the left was Zheng Yujie, whom Poplar Fruit didn't expect. What the hell? Why did this sister come out of nowhere? I didn't tell her when I was coming back, right? And she was dressed so beautifully. Dark purple trench coat, red skirt, black stockings, and high heels. She didn't look like a celebrity with her sunglasses. She looked more like a powerful queen. With her figure and appearance, she would be the center of attention wherever she went. She walked towards Poplar Fruit with a cold aura. Poplar Fruit was scared witless and almost ran away. Bro, you're on your own now. Song Jiwen stood at the back and didn't walk towards Poplar Fruit like Fang Beibei. He looked at Zheng Yujie, who was a few steps behind Fang Beibei, and swallowed hard. He recognized Zheng Yujie at a glance. When this big sister queen came to Yangcheng last year, she had completely suppressed him in terms of both her words and her aura. Song Jiwen thought that Poplar Fruit had fallen under Queen Zheng's whip. When Poplar Fruit suddenly said that he was in a relationship with his junior, he couldn't believe his ears. Now she appeared again. Was this the classic scene of a queen versus a queen? Song Jiwen started to worry about Fang Beibei. What are you talking about? Chen Anlin asked curiously. Let's watch the show. Song Jiwen said. Uncle. Feng Beibei didn't notice Zhang Yujie, who was walking over from the right. She only had eyes for the travel-worn poplar fruit. She quickly walked over and threw herself into poplar fruit's arms. She rested her chin on poplar fruit's chest and looked up at him with a sweet smile. Poplar fruit hugged his girlfriend and forgot about Zhang Yujie. He intimately pushed the suitcase and wrapped his left arm around Feng Beibei. Then he bent down and lowered his head, resting his forehead on her. Feng Beibei's eyes were as clear as water, while poplar fruit's eyes were, "Aya. You didn't wipe your eyes when you were sleeping." Feng Beibei giggled. She reached out her right hand and gently pushed poplar fruit's head up. She wiped the corner of his eye and brushed away the hard little thing. Ahem. Poplar fruit looked at her in annoyance. She ruined the good atmosphere. Hee. Is Kiki asleep? Feng Beibei hugged poplar fruit and avoided poplar fruit's hand that was rubbing her head. She even tiptoed and looked at Kiki, who was sleeping on poplar fruit's shoulder. Ahem. Zhang Yujie, who was ignored, had mixed feelings. Although she had thought that she would definitely see poplar fruit in Yangcheng, she really didn't expect that her heart would hurt so much when she saw it for herself. Zhang Yujie spent nearly an hour driving from the city center where she lived. Then she aimlessly went from one airport to another. This time, she spent more than an hour waiting. Her feet hurt from all the walking. Zhang Yujie hated herself for wearing such high heels just to see him. She even regretted coming over to see the man she had waited for so long holding another woman in his arms. Poplar fruit heard the sound and suddenly remembered that Zhang Yujie was here. Feng Beibei also looked over. She pushed poplar fruit in a daze and said, "Uncle, let's stand to the side. We're blocking other people's way." Poplar fruit looked at Zhang Yujie with a bitter smile. Zhang Yujie's face was calm, but her eyes were stubborn as if to say, "Even if you chase me away, I won't leave." Poplar fruit sighed in his heart. He let go of the suitcase with his left hand and turned Feng Beibei around. He looked at Zhang Yujie and forced a smile. "Baby, let me introduce you. This is Zhang Yujie. I've mentioned her to you before. She's not only my friend, but also my boss. She's the big boss of New Translation Road Publishing House. She just came from Beijing a few days ago." Feng Beibei opened her mouth slightly and looked at Zhang Yujie. Poplar fruit said to Zhang Yujie, "Yujie, this is my girlfriend Feng Beibei. She's also my junior. By the way, why are you here? Are you going on a business trip somewhere?" This question was simply a blatant lie. Anyone could tell that Zhang Yujie's clothes were meant to be used to pick someone up, but he really didn't know why Zhang Yujie was here. Feng Beibei's expression was a little nervous. Zhang Yujie's fashionable dress and curvy figure gave her too much pressure. So big. Feng Beibei looked at Zhang Yujie's bulging chest with some envy and some vigilance. Thinking of her own bean sprout-like figure, she couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. Feng Beibei was looking at Zhang Yujie, and Zhang Yujie was also looking at Feng Beibei. She frowned slightly and sighed in her heart. So young. So pure. Poplar fruit, you damn lolicon. Why didn't you meet me 10 years ago? Back then, I was also a little beauty with a child's face. The scene became strangely quiet. Poplar fruit scratched his head, not knowing how to deal with this situation. "So you're Feng Beibei." Zhang Yujie smiled. She saw Poplar fruit's embarrassment and sighed in her heart. She stood up and said, "You know me?" Feng Beibei asked nervously. Her nervousness was not only shown in her expression, but also in her actions. Subconsciously, she hugged Poplar fruit tightly. "I know. How could I not know?" Zhang Yujie smiled and said, "Everyone in the country knows that you're Poplar fruit's girlfriend. I'm sorry, I didn't inform Poplar fruit beforehand. When I saw the news that he was back, I drove over to pick him up. I didn't expect you to come too. If I knew, I would have gone to pick you up first." Zhang Yujie said with a smile. "We two women can talk together. I have brother Mosquito and sister-in-law to send me over." Feng Beibei pouted and said in a low voice. Poplar fruit, who was familiar with his girlfriend's habits, knew that the baby was unhappy. Chapter 907. In the end, Feng Beibei was still too young. Facing Zhang Yujie, who seemed to be completely superior to her in both figure and temperament, she was suddenly at a disadvantage. Not only did she feel like crying, But she also almost lost her balance. If it weren't for Poplar Fruit holding her tightly, Fong Beibei would have lost her support and fallen to the ground. Poplar Fruit frowned and said, "Okay, don't stand here. Mosquito and the others are still waiting for us across the street." Zheng Yujie felt that Poplar Fruit was unhappy. She felt a little wronged. "I didn't do anything. Why are you angry at me? I came to pick you up out of kindness. Am I wrong?" However, Zheng Yujie was very strong-willed. She took a deep breath and pretended not to see Fong Beibei's hostility. She smiled and said, "Is that so? That's great. I haven't seen Mosquito in a long time. Do you still live across the street?" Fong Beibei turned to look at Poplar Fruit and felt like crying. She pouted her little mouth and seemed to say, "Why does she know so much?" At this time, Poplar Fruit seemed to understand something. He held Fong Beibei's hand and squeezed it. He smiled and said, "I don't live there anymore. I moved near the school and live with the baby." Fong Beibei was suppressed by Zheng Yujie and seemed to be unable to speak. Poplar Fruit had to speak for her, indirectly declaring his sovereignty on behalf of Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei, who was easy to coax, suddenly changed from teary eyes to smiling eyes. She felt the warmth of Poplar Fruit's palm, which made her feel a lot more at ease. When she arrived at Song Jiwen's side, Zheng Yujie smiled charmingly at him. Her red lips, which were lightly painted with lipstick, curled up at an angle. Song Jiwen, on the other hand, took 2 steps back without any backbone. It was not that Zheng Yujie was too beautiful, but Zheng Yujie was too scary. When they lived at Poplar Fruit's house, Song Jiwen was bullied by her to the point that he had a shadow in his heart. "Hey, what are you afraid of?" Chen Anlin helped Song Jiwen up and smiled unhappily. She was not as unconfident as Fong Beibei. Little Chili was not afraid of anything. Other than her mother, no woman in the world could control her. Who is this? Song Jiwen, your girlfriend?" Zheng Yujie looked at Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin with a mischievous smile. With Zheng Yujie's eyesight, how could she not see that Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin were not a couple? But she just wanted to tease him. Otherwise, how could she express the depression in her heart that was provoked by Poplar Fruit? No, she's just a friend. Song Jiwen quickly clarified. "Oh right, her name is Chen Anlin." Little did he know that his long-winded clarification in Chen Anlin's eyes was like an explanation that he was worried his sweetheart would misunderstand. Chen Anlin was inexplicably unhappy. She patted Song Jiwen and motioned for him to move aside. "You're Zheng Yujie?" Chen Anlin was a little like a delinquent girl. She half raised her head, mainly because she was not tall enough, and snorted, "I heard you're from the capital. What are you doing in Yangcheng?" Chen Anlin opened her mouth. Her Mandarin was much better than Song Jiwen's. At least even if her words were harsh, to Zheng Yujie's ears, it sounded a little like her own local accent. It was very comfortable. After all, the capital and Jin City were not that far apart. Zheng Yujie did not mind Chen Anlin's provocation. She smiled and said, "I'm now in Yangcheng in Poplar Fruit's publishing house. I'll be staying in Yangcheng in the future." "Little sister Anlin, from your accent, you seem to be from Jin City?" "Yes, she's from Jin City." Song Jiwen rushed to answer. He almost blurted out the next question. "Since you're in Yangcheng, where are you staying? Still at Old Gua's? At Poplar Fruits?" Still. The atmosphere at the scene seemed to have frozen. Chen Anlin glared at Song Jiwen, as if to say that he had touched the pot that did not boil. Fong Beibei also opened her mouth. She looked at Song Jiwen in disbelief, and then turned to look at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit felt a headache. Although he could say that he had a clear conscience, he was worried that his girlfriend would be jealous. Therefore, there were some things that he did not dare to say. "But Mosquito, do you have to trick your teammate like this?" Chen Anlin spoke first. "What do you mean by staying at Old Gua's? Big brother Yang's house is so small and he's staying with Beibei. Is this a place where he can stay? Besides, it's not like big sister Zheng Yujie can't afford to stay in a hotel. I'll explain to you when we get back." Poplar Fruit lowered his head and whispered into Fong Beibei's ear. He raised his head and smiled. "Yes, and the place where I used to live is now for Anlin. Yujie, where are you staying now? When I came, you were still in Sweden. There's no need for you to worry." Zheng Yujie smiled charmingly. Her appearance made Fang Beibei nervous again. She said, I've already rented a hotel apartment in the new city. Every inch of land in the new city was expensive, and renting a place was even more expensive. However, Zheng Yujie did not care about that small amount of money. She just wanted to live comfortably, safely, and conveniently. Biting her lower lip, Fang Beibei finally mustered up her courage. She puffed out her chest and said, So it's like that. It's not far from us. Big sister Zheng Yujie, if you're free, you can come to our place to eat. Uncle cooks, and his cooking is delicious. Eating was a lie. Telling Zheng Yujie that she needed her permission to eat was the real truth. Fang Beibei held Poplar Fruit's hand and told herself in her heart, Don't be afraid. Even if I'm nothing compared to her, I have Poplar Fruit. Uncle loves me. He's my boyfriend, not yours. How could Zheng Yujie not understand Fang Beibei's thoughts? However, understanding was one thing, but her heart could not help but ache. Thinking back, when she came to Yangcheng, she said that she did not want to stay in a hotel, so he gave her the bedroom and went to sleep on the sofa. When she was drunk and unconscious, he was so honest that he did not seem like a man. Not only did he not take advantage of her, he even prepared porridge for her. Zheng Yujie still remembered that although Poplar Fruit was as dumb as a block of wood, his thoughtfulness and gentleness made her, who despised men for more than 20 years, let down her guard. The breakfast he prepared for her, the food he cooked, it was really delicious. She wanted to be pampered by him for the rest of her life. Unfortunately, in the blink of an eye, his arms were already occupied by another woman, and she was in front of her, smiling and telling her that she was welcome to be a guest at their house. She was just a girlfriend. Why did she already put herself in the position of the hostess? Zheng Yujie suddenly felt very stifled. For the first time in front of her love rival, she fell silent. In the end, she forced a smile and forced herself to maintain her swaying aura, saying, Okay, next time when I come over, Beibei Mimi, open the door. Fang Beibei was still too young. She originally had the upper hand, but Zheng Yujie's words made her nervous. Her brain was like a pile of paste. How could she tell that Zheng Yujie was just forcing a smile? She was still worried. If Zheng Yujie really came, how could she face her? Fang Beibei faintly felt that whatever Duan Xueqing Shiji was just a fleeting cloud. She was her biggest love rival. How could Zheng Yujie not feel the same way? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 908. Poplar Fruit didn't know how he got home. Anyway, dealing with the relationship between Zheng Yujie and his girlfriend had already exhausted Poplar Fruit. Compared to his high IQ and super memory, Poplar Fruit's EQ was a bit low. In the short 10 minutes at the airport, Poplar Fruit felt that he had used up more energy than translating a literary work with hundreds of thousands of words. In online novels, the male protagonists of those authors have women on both sides, and they even have a harem. It's really nonsense. Poplar Fruit lamented. Women are so troublesome. It's only me and my baby who are pure and innocent. How nice. After putting Kiki, who was sleeping soundly, on her small bed and covering her with the quilt, Poplar Fruit couldn't find a reason to hide in the bedroom. So he braced himself and walked out. Fang Beibei didn't change her clothes. She sat cross-legged on the sofa and looked at Poplar Fruit with her mouth pouted. For words were written on her face. I'm not happy. Poplar Fruit walked over and poured a glass of water for her. He held her little hand and asked with a smile, Baby, are you thirsty? I'm not thirsty, Fang Beibei said with her mouth pouted. Then are you hungry? I'll cook noodles for you, Poplar Fruit said fawningly. Don't ask me if I'm hungry. Do you still love me or not? Fang Beibei went crazy. She threw herself on Poplar Fruit and slapped him. We're talking like we're rehearsing our lines. Poplar Fruit laughed and hugged his girlfriend's waist. However, he didn't tie her hands and let her vent her dissatisfaction. Okay, of course I love you. Poplar Fruit did not wait for Fang Beibei to become impatient again. He smiled and said, When did I not love you? Then what's the matter with Zheng Yujie tonight? Fang Beibei asked with a pout. Didn't I mention it to you before? Poplar Fruit said, First of all, you have seen her photo, And I told you that she is my friend and the boss of my publishing house. Have you forgotten? But you didn't say she was so beautiful, and you didn't say she liked you. Fong Beibei said unhappily. How can I say that someone likes me? Poplar Fruit pinched Fong Beibei's face, but she shook her head to avoid it. He had no choice but to say, if I said that, wouldn't I be showing off? There are a lot of fans online who want to marry me. You're showing off. Fong Beibei bit her lower lip and said, that's different, okay? She came to pick you up in front of me. Okay. Don't be angry. Didn't I make it clear? I didn't tell her that I was back. I told you the whole world. If it weren't for the reporters, she wouldn't have known that I was back. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. You know, you're the only one in my heart. My mother said that you men always say one thing and mean another. Fong Beibei said with a pout. Okay, don't think about her anymore. She and I are innocent. We are just friends, as good as mosquitoes. Poplar Fruit held Fong Beibei's hand to his mouth and kissed it. He said, whether I say one thing and mean another, how I treat you, don't you feel it yourself? Fong Beibei was stunned for a moment. She thought that Poplar Fruit was unhappy. She quickly shook her head and said, it's not that I don't believe you, but didn't Brother Mosquito say that? She used to live with you. I don't feel at ease. That's true. Poplar Fruit smiled. Seeing that Fong Beibei was nervous again, he explained. At that time I didn't know her yet. In order to persuade me to join the translation team of Steve Jobs' biography, she came from Beijing and waited at my door. After discussing with her, it was very late. Poplar Fruit said. In the middle of the night, I didn't know where to find a hotel for her, so I asked her to sleep in my room, and I slept in the living room. You know the layout of my house. It's very big. And then? Fong Beibei asked. Then she came again. She went to find Mr. Mo Yen to discuss the publishing rights of his book. I went with her. At that time, I met Mr. Mo. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. This time she came. Because she didn't stay for long, she also stayed at my place. Fong Beibei was very jealous. She sat on one of Poplar Fruit's thighs, and her slender hands were grabbing the zipper of the down jacket. But you have to have confidence in me. Poplar Fruit took Fong Beibei's hand again and said with a smile. I didn't do anything to her. I'm such a pure person. Fong Beibei chuckled and patted Poplar Fruit's chest, saying, you say you're pure? Oh uncle, you're so shameless. Although she was still a little angry, Poplar Fruit felt relieved when Fong Beibei laughed. He began to feel that Fong Beibei was getting easier and easier to coax. She was not like before, when she would be unhappy for a long time because of a small matter. Poplar Fruit didn't know that in fact, it was because the two of them had been through several storms since November. Fong Beibei was getting to know him more and more, so she was more and more relieved. I brought you a gift. Poplar Fruit took out a simple and exquisite wooden box from his suitcase and handed it to Fong Beibei, saying, come and see what it is. Don't bribe me with a gift. I'm still angry. Fong Beibei pouted and muttered, but she still took the box. She held it in her arms and didn't want to open it. Poplar Fruit reached out and opened the lid for her. She only saw a thick piece of flannel inside, and on top of it was a crystal clear woman's crown. Wow. Fong Beibei's eyes became crystal clear. Every girl has a princess dream, and such a beautiful crown was what she wanted most when she was a child. It's really made of crystal. Poplar Fruit laughed. I saw it in a jewelry store in Stockholm and wanted to buy a crown in a country where there is still a king. Maybe I can really buy a princess crown back for you. Fong Beibei had already covered her mouth. She was so surprised that she couldn't speak. Do you like it? Poplar Fruit took out the crown, helped her put it on, and asked gently. I like it. When Fong Beibei raised her head, the shyness in her eyes couldn't be concealed. She nodded slightly, blushed, and said, Uncle, do you think it looks good? Poplar Fruit pretended to look at her. Fong Beibei was a little embarrassed and wanted to lower her head. You're quite beautiful, but you're wearing clothes like a country bumpkin. Baby, are you Princess Cinderella? Fong Beibei first took off the crystal crown on her head and carefully put it in the box. Then, with a cry, she jumped up and threw herself at Poplar Fruit. You're Cinderella, you're the country bumpkin. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 909. Poplar Fruit came out of the shower and walked into the living room while wiping his hair. He saw Fong Beibei sitting on the sofa, dozing off while hugging the blanket. No wonder Fong Beibei was so sleepy. It was already past 12 o'clock at night. Normally, Fong Beibei would be asleep at this time. But today, because Poplar Fruit came back late, the two talked for a while. And it was already 12 o'clock by the time they finished showering. "Baby, why don't you go back to sleep if you're sleepy?" Poplar Fruit took the wooden box from her hand and put the crystal crown worth more than 100,000 renminbi on the coffee table. "I just dried my hair and was waiting for you," Fong Beibei said tiredly. She stretched out her hands and asked for a hug. Poplar Fruit pulled the blanket away, reached out to her ankles, and easily carried her up. Fong Beibei's arms were around Poplar Fruit's neck, and she snuggled in Poplar Fruit's arms. Poplar Fruit knew that it was very cold in winter. Although the house was air-conditioned, after lifting the blanket, Fong Beibei's body would be exposed to the outside air. He hugged Fong Beibei's body tighter. Back on the bed, Fong Beibei hugged him and lay down on him like a kitten. Poplar Fruit pulled up the space blanket that he had changed into and smiled. "Go to sleep. I saw that you were thinner than before I went out. You need to take care of your body." Poplar Fruit avoided the question of Ganjuanji. After all, this matter hurt Fong Beibei too much. Since it was over, Poplar Fruit already had a plan. Poplar Fruit did not intend to mention this person in front of his girlfriend. Fong Beibei suddenly used her elbow as a support and her palm to support her chin. She looked at Poplar Fruit with her big watery eyes. "What are you doing?" Poplar Fruit asked in amusement. "Say, you men, do you all like big ones?" Fong Beibei pouted. Because her chin was propped up, her voice was somewhat muffled as she asked. "What big?" Poplar Fruit asked, puzzled. Fong Beibei sat up straight. She pouted and gestured in front of her chest. "It's that guy from today." Her boobs were already so big. "Then, when I went out, I saw many men secretly looking at her." Poplar Fruit understood. He laughed and said, "Are you exaggerating? She shouldn't be as old as you said, right?" Fong Beibei just gestured the size of half a basketball, which was really exaggerated. Zheng Yujie was indeed a lot bigger than Fong Beibei, but it was not to the extent of being cumbersome. "You haven't touched it. How do you know it's not that big?" Fong Beibei unhappily said. Although she said so, she was still very nervous. She was afraid that Poplar Fruit would blurt out, "I have touched it. It's just a visual estimation." Poplar Fruit hooked Fong Beibei's neck and hugged her to his chest. He smiled and said, "Okay, stop fooling around." "Then you peeked." Fong Beibei patted Poplar Fruit's chest and snappily said, "You still haven't answered me." Fong Beibei moved her head to the pillow. She looked sideways at Poplar Fruit and asked, "Do you men like big?" This should be a serious academic question. Poplar Fruit seriously thought about it and then said, "Not necessarily, right? Research has shown that the beauty of a woman's chest is composed of at least 15 aspects, such as arc, model, bean shape, and so on. A big chest is not necessarily good. If it's sagging, it may not be good." If it was Song Jiwen who answered this question, he would definitely disdainfully say, "A big chest is not necessarily good, but if it's not big, it's definitely not good." Only Poplar Fruit, at this time, would think of the sentences in the literature he read before to explain to his girlfriend. "Aya, you're so annoying." Fong Beibei really liked Poplar Fruit's trick. She slapped Poplar Fruit's chest, then covered her mouth and giggled. "Then tell me, is mine good?" Fong Beibei blushed and said with a voice like a mosquito, "Good. Babies are beautiful everywhere. The most beautiful thing in the world is a baby." Yang Guo's answer to this question was very quick, almost without any hesitation. "Hee, is that so?" Fong Beibei said with a smile, "But I think I'm small." "Not small." Poplar Fruit pretended to be surprised, raised his head and said, "This size is the best." "AI." Fong Beibei bit her lower lip and said shyly, "How do you know the size? Have you seen it?" No, I guessed it." Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "Baby, don't think too much about this. If you're healthy, everything will be fine." I don't care. Fong Beibei pouted, shook her head and said, I want to drink papaya milk. You have to cook it for me tomorrow. Okay. I guarantee that when baby wakes up tomorrow, there will be papaya milk to drink. Poplar Fruit said resolutely. Uncle, you're so nice. Fong Beibei smiled and hugged Poplar Fruit's arm and whispered coquettishly. Ahem. Poplar Fruit coughed and said, Baby, actually, if you want to get bigger, there's a better way than drinking papaya milk. What way? Fong Beibei asked in surprise. There's really no woman who doesn't care about her own figure. Touch and grow bigger. Poplar Fruit held back for a moment, made up his mind and said, Swear to God. Poplar Fruit is really not such an impure person. It's just that his recent work required him to read a lot of online novels, causing him to be infected by the wretchedness of online novels. Cute? Fong Beibei did not understand and asked. No, it's touch and grow bigger. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and explained. It means that if a girl's boyfriend touches her more, it will be easier for her to get bigger. It's obviously you who wants to touch, isn't it? Fong Beibei's cheeks flushed. She pinched Poplar Fruit's arm muscles and said coquettishly. Poplar Fruit quickly explained. There's a scientific basis for this. Touching, it's easier to promote blood circulation and promote the growth of that thing inside. Then it will get bigger. Actually, you can touch it yourself. Poplar Fruit lowered his head in embarrassment. For a long time, Poplar Fruit did not hear any movement from Fong Beibei. She did not even hit him. Poplar Fruit was nervous, he raised his head, and was about to apologize. But what he saw was that under the dim yellow light of the bedside lamp, Fong Beibei's face was flushed red. Her hair was messy, and she was biting her lower lip. Her beautiful appearance was like that of a newly married bride whose red veil had just been lifted by the groom. Uncle, do you really want it? Fong Beibei was too embarrassed to say the next verb. She blushed and looked at Poplar Fruit with her big watery eyes. It seemed like it was a very important moment. Poplar Fruit took a deep breath and did not say anything. He only nodded slightly. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei's eyes met. The shyness in Fong Beibei's eyes and the affection in Poplar Fruit's eyes almost dyed the whole room an intoxicating pink. Poplar Fruit only felt that his big hand was grabbed by a small hand from below, through a thin layer of cloth, across warm and smooth skin, to the high ground that he had yearned for day and night. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 9-10. Poplar Fruit's return this time was even busier than the last time he came back from Paris and America. After all, his trip this time, in the words of the principal who came to greet him, was representing the country and the school. In the past 2 days he had been attacked by a few leaders in the teacher's office. Poplar Fruit finally sighed and said to the teacher, It's true that people are afraid of fame and pigs are afraid of being fat. You have to learn to get used to it. Chen Zongdai sat firmly in the principal's seat and smiled faintly. He said, In this system, there are always many things that are not up to you. Since you can't resist, you have to learn to make use of it. Poplar Fruit nodded and smiled. It's okay, I'm getting used to it now. Not just getting used to it. I'm emphasizing making use of it. Chen Zongdai didn't just treat Poplar Fruit as his disciple, he also saw Poplar Fruit as his own child. His teachings to Poplar Fruit were not limited to academic matters. I know you want to concentrate on academics, but this world is no longer an era where you can build a car behind closed doors. If you put in a little effort to deal with interpersonal relationships, it will help you achieve twice the results with half the effort. Chen Zongdai said with a slightly serious tone. Just like Su Kaijin, if it wasn't for him speaking for you in the Department of Education, how could you have gotten into the top 10 universities in the country? Chen Zongdai smiled and said, Don't look at how famous you are outside. If they don't want to recommend you, they will naturally have 100 reasons to say that you can't do it. The results of the award are out? I didn't even pay attention to it. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and asked embarrassedly. Not yet, but it should be close. With the people from the Department of Education recommending you, this won't be a problem. Moreover, you have enough qualifications. Looking at your reputation after coming back from abroad, it would be unreasonable if this award wasn't given to you. Chun Zongdai smiled and said. Seeing that Poplar Fruit didn't seem to care, Chun Zongdai knocked him and said, "Don't look down on this award and think that it's just an undeserved reputation. If you get a few more awards, it'll be easier for you to do anything in the future. Even if the school doesn't give me face, they will still give you a lot of help for the honor of this award," Chun Zongdai said with a smile. Really? Poplar Fruit asked happily. The school's support really made a big difference. Previously, they could only squeeze into a rented room in Poplar Fruit. Later, they had an activity room to store their equipment. Later, they could freely apply for the school's empty classrooms as their activity room. If the support from the university was greater, like the previous official graduate student support mission, Poplar Fruit could also fight for more honor or credit benefits for his caring members. Didn't Vice Principal Zhang ask me about your remote teaching situation just now? Chun Zongdai smiled and said, "You should be mentally prepared. He might visit you after New Year's Day." Yang Guo was stunned for a moment before she nodded seriously. "Don't worry too much. Vice Principal Zhang is not a big bad wolf." Chun Zongdai deliberately used Kiki's favorite cartoon to make fun of him. "He has a good impression of you. He won't nitpick on you." "Okay. I won't lecture you too much." Chun Zongdai waved his hand and said, "Go do what you need to do." Yes. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "I still have a lecture in the evening. I'll take Kiki home to rest first." "I almost forgot that you have a lecture tonight." Chun Zongdai rubbed his chin and said with a flushed face, "Dress more spirited tonight. Many people will appear, including Vice Principal Zhang who came today." "Teacher, you're also going to support me, right?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "I'm going, but do you still need me to support you? Why do I feel that you're several times more popular than me?" Chun Zongdai laughed. After leaving the outer court building, Poplar Fruit raised his head and looked at the sunshine outside. The cold winter made the sunshine extra precious. At this moment, the sky was cloudless. The only thing that was about to come was the warm noon sun, which was the most comfortable enjoyment of the day. The sun shone through the treetops. Poplar Fruit's pupils slightly shrank, as if a ray of light flashed through his eyes. Walking at the crossroads of the school, in front of him was Chun Zongdai's house. Kiki was playing with her brothers and sisters. She might have been looking forward to her father's arrival. However, Poplar Fruit did not plan to pick up his daughter now. He firmly turned to the left and slowly walked out of the campus. The outside of the campus was bustling with people coming and going. It was so noisy that it was like another world. Poplar Fruit took out a mask from his coat pocket and covered half of his face. From his bag, Poplar Fruit also took out a hat that was hidden under a book and covered his eyes. Poplar Fruit took out a small bag from his bag and stuffed it into a crack in the wall that few people could see. After changing his appearance, Poplar Fruit took a deep breath and gently spat out 2 words. "Game start. Game start." After enduring for a long time, after secretly experimenting in Sweden and planning for the past 2 days, Poplar Fruit finally found the best opportunity for revenge. Flagging a taxi, Poplar Fruit got into the back seat. He clenched his fist and coughed. Nanyue Medical University's 6th affiliated hospital. "Driver, please drive faster. I have an appointment with a doctor." If someone knew Poplar Fruit was here, they would definitely be startled. Is this really Poplar Fruit's voice? Although Poplar Fruit's acting was ordinary, he had covered his face. So even if his acting wasn't good, no one would think that he was acting. However, in the field of language, this was Yang Guo's strong point. The Mandarin he spoke at the moment was not as standard as he usually did. Not only was his accent serious, but it also carried a strong flavor of Nanha Province. Anyone would think that he was a person from Nanha Province who came to Guangdong Province to make a living. Listening to Poplar Fruit's voice, there was even a stuffy feeling. No one knew how Poplar Fruit managed to imitate it. "Okay." The driver laughed. He skillfully stepped on the accelerator and pulled the lever, and the car sped out. Nanyue Medical University's 6th affiliated hospital wasn't far from Gan Juanji's residence. It was only 2 streets away, and Poplar Fruit did not intend to take a taxi to his destination. For the rest of the journey, Poplar Fruit intended to walk over. After giving the driver cash and change, Poplar Fruit walked into the hospital, like an ordinary patient. He first entered the building's toilet and flipped his double-sided sweater over, revealing the grayish-black side. Since he was moving during the day, Poplar Fruit did not have to wear any weird night clothes. He zipped it up and wore the hoodie. Although this looked very strange, in the hospital, the patients were all strange. Some of the patients with skin infections were also like this. People were already used to it. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 9:11. With his head down, Poplar Fruit contracted his muscles and slightly bent his knees at an angle that no one could see. This made him look shorter than usual. He had learned these disguise skills from Xiong-Kahu. Although he was limited by the conditions and could not use all of them, they were already very effective. At the very least, people who knew Poplar Fruit would not be able to see him even if they stood in front of him. After leaving the hospital, Poplar Fruit turned into a deserted alley. He ran along the foot of the wall that had no cameras. If there was no one around, Poplar Fruit would run like a puff of smoke. If there was someone to measure his speed, he could run 100 meters in less than 10 seconds. He definitely broke the Asian record. Soon, Poplar Fruit arrived at the back of a building. This was a high-end apartment, and the management was very strict. It was almost impossible to enter from the front door. In addition to the door control, there were several security guards on duty at the door. If Poplar Fruit went in like this, it would be strange if he was not seen through. However, Poplar Fruit had a way. He stood behind the wall outside the entrance of the underground parking lot, in a blind spot of the cameras, and waited quietly. Here it comes. Poplar Fruit's eyes flashed. In front of him, a small bus from a cleaning company slowly drove over. Just as the small bus reached the entrance and was about to hit the high-speed belt, and then drive along the slope into the building, Poplar Fruit came out from his hiding place. He bent down hard and raised his head. His body was very close to the small bus, and he followed the small bus into the underground parking lot. In order to avoid the cameras, Poplar Fruit changed his position according to the blueprint provided by Fat Dragon in his mind. He either hid behind or stuck to the left side of the car. Perhaps only Poplar Fruit could bend down and follow the small bus in small steps without making too much noise. After entering the parking lot, it was easy to do. Poplar Fruit took out a pair of gloves from his pocket and put them on. According to Fat Dragon's method, he pried open a small cover at the foot of the wall and connected a newly bought smartphone to it. Okay, connect to the data. Fat Dragon yelled into Poplar Fruit's Bluetooth headset. Give me 3 minutes, and I can control the entire building's video surveillance. If it weren't for the fact that the building's monitoring system was in their own local area network, Fat Dragon would have been able to control the entire building. Why would Poplar Fruit need to follow the minibus here? Okay, go go go. Fat Dragon yelled. Luckily, it was only a remote command. With Fat Dragon's personality, he would definitely be caught before he could even start a case. Poplar Fruit picked up a blank card and tapped it on the elevator of the underground parking lot. He then swaggered into the building from the elevator. All the surveillance cameras in front of you are static. Don't worry. Fat Dragon shouted. Poplar Fruit took off his headphones and said in a low voice, I know, don't be noisy. It's so annoying to hear all this noise in my ear. Poplar Fruit had to keep calm at the moment. Although it was the first time he had done something bad, and Poplar Fruit didn't think it was a bad thing to avenge Fong Bei, Poplar Fruit didn't feel the slightest psychological burden. It wasn't that he hadn't seen blood before, and after practicing martial arts, his mentality had changed a lot. Han Fizi said, heroes use martial arts to break the law. Most people who practiced martial arts had bad tempers, and they often drew their swords at the slightest disagreement. Moreover, they thought highly of themselves and didn't care about the ordinary laws at all. Poplar Fruit was already considered good. He still maintained his simple nature. Except for when something happened to the people he cared about, he generally didn't choose to mess around. This was just like when Poplar Fruit was arrested and sent to prison. After he came out, he didn't personally cause trouble for Gushida. On the one hand, it was because Gushida was punished by the law. On the other hand, it was because Gushita didn't touch Poplar Fruit's reverse scale. After going up to the 17th floor, Poplar Fruit swaggered out and came to room 1706. The video surveillance shows that he hasn't come out today, Fat Dragon said. It should be as we thought. His habit is to sleep until the afternoon. Poplar Fruit nodded and looked around. Can you open the door and go in? Fat Dragon asked. No, it's a password lock. I don't have the tools, Poplar Fruit whispered as he pulled on the window in the corridor. My head hurts. Fat Dragon said gloomily. Why don't you knock on the door? No one will see it anyway. Just deal with it and leave. No. Poplar Fruit's words were accompanied by the whistling of the wind. What's that sound? Fat Dragon asked in confusion. He suddenly remembered something. They had done this before. Fruit, did you climb outside the building? Fat Dragon was scared out of his wits. He shouted. Fruit, are you crazy? This is the 17th floor, not the 5th or 6th floor. Don't be noisy, Poplar Fruit said, holding his breath. It was windy outside in the winter. The wind outside the dozen floors was like a knife. Fortunately, he was still wearing a mask. Be careful, be careful. Fat Dragon covered his mouth, but he still whispered in a trembling voice. Poplar Fruit ignored him. He couldn't hear him clearly. Only Poplar Fruit was brave. He pinched the outer edge of the window and slowly moved to the side. Fortunately, the more he walked, the wider the space he could put his feet on. In the end, Poplar Fruit held the outer edge of the building frame with one hand, and then reached out with the other hand and grabbed the railing of the balcony. The balcony here didn't have an anti-theft net. They probably wouldn't believe that someone would climb in from the outside at a height of more than 60 meters. Phew! Poplar Fruit took a deep breath. His right hand pressed on the railing of the balcony, and then his legs kicked. His whole body soared into the air. Using his right hand as a fulcrum, he gently jumped and landed on the balcony of room 1706. There's no camera. Fat Dragon said to Poplar Fruit through the camera of Poplar Fruit's phone to find out the situation inside the room. Poplar Fruit calmly took off the shoes on his feet. He only wore socks, pushed open the screen door of the balcony, and walked into the room. The smell of cigarettes and alcohol in the room had faded a lot, but there was still a smell. Clothes and bottles of alcohol could be seen everywhere on the floor and sofa. It was obvious that the owner's nightlife was decadent. There isn't a second person. Poplar Fruit turned around the living room and stood at the open bedroom door. His eyes were fixed on the naked man lying on the bed. This was the first time he saw Ganjuanji. In order to confirm the target, Poplar Fruit took out his phone and looked at his photo, which was provided by Fat Dragon. Ganjuanji's appearance was not bad. He had the kind of appearance that girls liked. He was even more charming than Song Ji-wen. He was thin and tall. From his back and buttocks, he looked like a guy who didn't have the strength to truss a chicken. Moreover, he was too indulgent, and there was a sense of deficit. Originally, I had already let you go. Poplar Fruit stood at the head of the bed and looked at Ganjuanji, who was sleeping soundly without any sense of crisis. He sighed in his heart. Who told you to hurt the person I love the most again and again? In your next life, be a good person. Like a huge shadow, Poplar Fruit reached out to him. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to / Chapter 9:12. Retracting his hand, Poplar Fruit calmly put on his gloves. The emotions in his eyes didn't seem to have fluctuated. At this moment, he seemed to be more like the cold-blooded killer that he encountered with Alan in the United States. During the mission, he had already sealed off his emotions. How is it? Is it done? On the other end of the headset, Fat Dragon was holding the microphone in fear. He lowered his voice and called out. Just like the stupid thief in the movies, his voice was so funny. Yongwa coldly glanced at him again, then turned around and left. When he turned around, the naked man lying on the bed behind him groaned and scratched his back. He changed his position and continued to sleep. Because of the heater, the quilt was kicked to the ground by him. Fruit? Heavenly King covering Earth Tiger? A begonia suppressing pear blossom? It seemed that if Poplar Fruit didn't say anything, Fat Dragon wouldn't let it go. He continued to whisper with a trembling voice. Suppressing your head. Poplar Fruit walked to the balcony and couldn't help but yell at him in a low voice. Don't be noisy. Okay, you're busy. Fat Dragon shrunk his head and closed his mouth. Poplar Fruit returned the way he came. He climbed through the window and returned to the corridor. He then took the elevator to the parking lot on the second floor. Along the way, Poplar Fruit swaggered. However, no one met him in the elevator. This was his luck. I'm going to pull out the phone. It's time to leave. Back downstairs, Poplar Fruit's mood recovered a little. He wasn't as cold as before. He could also discuss with Fat Dragon how to deal with the aftermath. Pull it out. It's okay. I installed a program in the background of the monitoring system. After you pull out the phone, it can last for 15 minutes. So after plucking it out, hurry up and run. The Fat Dragon nagged. Got it. Poplar Fruit nimbly pulled out the spare phone and put the cover back in place. He then bypassed the parking lot management staff and left the parking lot through the electronic card reader. All right, I'm out. Poplar Fruit whispered to Fat Dragon in the Bluetooth headset. Next, I can handle it myself. You can go back and play with your wife. Poplar Fruit's mood seemed to become better, and he began to joke with Fat Dragon. Hey, wait. Fat Dragon shouted anxiously. Gua, you haven't told me the results yet. Have you dealt with him yet? It's done. You don't have to ask anymore. Just forget about it, okay? Destroy everything. Poplar Fruit said. After this, we'll still be the same as before. Hee, okay, I understand. Fat Dragon grinned and hung up the phone. Poplar Fruit walked forward until they reached the hospital. Once again in the toilet, Poplar Fruit broke the Bluetooth headset, crushed it, and threw it into the toilet to flush it. The phone was disassembled. Except for the SIM card and some basic motherboards, Poplar Fruit didn't hesitate to break and crush it. He took it back and packed it in a plastic bag and stuffed it into the trash can. He changed back to his original clothes and left the hospital. Poplar Fruit was still the same as when he came. He called a taxi and let the car drive him to the residential area near Higashiyama University. When the taxi was far away, Poplar Fruit flashed into an alley. He stuffed his mask, hat, and the inside and outside sweater he wore today into a plastic bag and threw it into the trash can. As for the SIM card and motherboards, Poplar Fruit crushed them into pieces and scattered them all along the way. Clapping his hands, Poplar Fruit returned to Higashiyama University. Gently tiptoeing, Poplar Fruit took back his backpack and changed into his usual jacket. He naturally went to buy some vegetables and calmly walked through the school gate. After throwing away all the items just now, Poplar Fruit seemed to have deleted what he had done in the past hour. His face returned to its usual bright and sunny smile. Sometimes, when a handsome person walks on the street, he's like a street lamp in the dark. Although he's very low-key, you can't help but notice him. A non-famous web writer once said. After walking a few steps on campus, Poplar Fruit was surrounded by a group of girls. Poplar Fruit Sr.? Poplar Fruit Sr. One of them was so excited that tears streamed down her face. Hello. Poplar Fruit, who had never put himself in the position of an idol, hurriedly bowed and greeted them. Why aren't you in class? Oh no, it's noon now. Sorry, I should be asking why aren't you in class? Poplar Fruit Sr. is so cute. The girl who saw Poplar Fruit crying just now almost fainted from Poplar Fruit's cuteness. Poplar Fruit Sr., can you give me an autograph? A short but cute-looking girl held a notebook and looked at Poplar Fruit with admiration. Hey, I'm not a celebrity idol. Why are you asking me for an autograph? Poplar Fruit embarrassedly took the notebook and signed his name. He didn't write any artistic characters, just a delicate regular script under the ballpoint pen. Because your story is very inspirational. My daughter clenched her small fist and said, I will definitely become someone as awesome as you in the future. She said it as if there was a big age gap between them. Well, anyway, thank you for liking me. Poplar Fruit took the notebook and signed it while saying, but I have to go back to pick up my daughter, so let's call it a day? By the way, I have a lecture in the small auditorium tonight. It's free of charge. If you're interested, come and listen, okay? Really? What time? I want to go. Several girls said excitedly. It starts at 7 o'clock in the evening. If you don't have class, come over. Poplar Fruit smiled and waved goodbye to them. In fact, Poplar Fruit saw that when he said evening, several girls couldn't help but stiffen. They should have class tonight. However, Poplar Fruit didn't intend to persuade them. After all, college students are at an age where they have the freedom to choose. It's hard for them to listen to other people's advice, just like Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit also wanted to persuade them not to treat him as an idol, but just now, he didn't see any of the girls obediently listening to him. After leaving, Poplar Fruit wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Just now he was being pestered by these girls, which made it difficult for him. If he were to meet more irrational fans outside of school, wouldn't he have no chance to escape? One must know that Poplar Fruit now has more than 4 million fans on Weibo. Until now, Poplar Fruit was still worried about having too many fans. He didn't realize that these fans, for him, were actually a very good resistance. At this moment, Poplar Fruit naturally wouldn't think about these complicated problems. He wanted to pick up Kiki, and then go to the library to pick up his girlfriend. Since coming back, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei had a new breakthrough that night. The two of them were more and more glued to each other like knees, wanting to be close to each other. And I miss my baby. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 9:13. Goodbye, Grandma. Goodbye, brother and sister. Kiki held her father's hand and politely waved goodbye to Poplar Fruit's teacher's wife and her friends. The little fellow was dressed very cute today. She was wearing a down jacket that was not very clumsy. She had 2 small braids, and the headband on both sides of her head and the headband on her forehead were embellished with tiny flowers. She looked like a flower fairy who had become fatter. Then, she also received the same childish response from her little friends opposite her. Poplar Fruit carried the vegetables in one hand and Kiki in the other. Walking on the school road, he asked with a smile, "Kiki, what did you play with your brothers and sisters this morning?" Kiki hopscotch. She danced with joy, as if she did not feel tired after playing for the whole morning. She still happily said, "Kiki jumped farther than my brother, so much farther." The little fellow opened her arms, but she felt that it was a little exaggerated. It was not that far, so she withdrew a little, and then withdrew a little. No matter how she moved, it was not to her liking. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "No way? When did hopscotch compete to see who can jump farther? Don't you have to jump from square to square in hopscotch? Did Kiki jump too far and then lose?" Kiki pouted and said unconvinced, "Papa is so bad. Say Kiki lost." "Then you say it yourself, don't you? Children should be honest." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Papa is bad. Kiki doesn't want to play with Papa." The little fellow was unwilling to admit her failure, and deliberately turned her head. "Kiki wants to play with Sister Beibei. By the way, call Sister Beibei down." Poplar Fruit smiled and handed the bag of vegetables to the hand holding Kiki. Then he took out his mobile phone, opened WeChat, and said to the phone, "Baby, I picked up Kiki and came back. Are you in the library? Come down and let's go back together." "Hey, Papa, Kiki wants to speak too." Although Kiki had used WeChat's voice communication function before, she was still very excited when she saw it. She bent down and grabbed her father's hand that was holding the phone. "All right. I'll let you play with it. Don't move around or you'll fall." Poplar Fruit steadied himself and hugged Kiki. Then he raised his phone and said, "Press it yourself." Just like her father, Kiki scratched her head and carefully recalled the function of the WeChat walkie-talkie that she had played before. She pointed at an icon and turned to ask her father, "Papa, should I introduce one? This is for adding pictures. The one on the left that looks like an antenna is the one talking." Poplar Fruit gestured with his chin. Although she didn't know what the antenna looked like, Kiki heard the word left and pressed it. "Speak." Poplar Fruit smiled. "Kiki, hello?" Kiki still pretended to want to audition. Finally, she began to get to the point. She half shouted and half screamed, "Baby, Papa is calling you home." "Ha ha 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 ha." The little girl mischievously imitated her father and called Beibei sister. Then she couldn't help but laugh at herself. This laugh was really childlike and brilliant. It made this somewhat cold winter become warm. Kiki also said that Daddy is bad. Poplar Fruit took back his phone and walked forward with a smile. He pretended to blame and said, "Later, Sister Bebe will definitely say that Kiki is too naughty and doesn't know how to respect others. She's not cute at all." No. Kiki's little feet stepped on her father's waist and twisted up and down on her father's body. She said unwillingly, "Kiki is very cute. Kiki is the cutest." Ding dong. Poplar Fruit picked up his phone and raised it to Kiki. He smiled and said, "You don't believe me?" "Look," Sister Bebe replied. "She must be here to teach Kiki a lesson. Come and listen." Woo! Kiki raised her two small hands and covered her eyes. She shook her head and said, "Don't listen, don't listen." He didn't know why she covered her eyes. Could it be that she was Kiki's version of deceiving oneself? However, Batty Daddy had already pressed play. "Okay, I'm coming down now." Fong Bebe seemed to still be in the library. He could hear her footsteps coming down the stairs. She lowered her voice and said, "Uncle, where are you?" So he wasn't here to teach Kiki a lesson. Kiki's little hands that were covering her eyes secretly pulled down, and her two big eyes secretly peeked out from between her fingers. "I'll be right there." Before Poplar Fruit could finish replying, he received another voice message. It's Chi-Chi talking, right?" Fong Bebe might have walked to a place where she could speak freely. She said with a smile, "Why are you learning from your father?" "Kiki, Sister Bebe is telling you, your father is very, very bad. Don't learn from him." It wasn't over yet. Fong Bebe turned to Poplar Fruit and said, "Uncle, did you teach her?" Well, she didn't blame Kiki. Instead, she shifted the blame to Poplar Fruit. "I really didn't teach her." Poplar Fruit helplessly waved his hand and stood in front of Fong Bebe and said, "Humph, it's the father's fault if the son doesn't teach." Fong Bebe took over Kiki so that Poplar Fruit's hand could be slightly free. However, Fong Bebe immediately hooked her arm in. She held Kiki with one hand and intertwined her other hand with Poplar Fruit's arm. Their fingers were even intertwined. "Why did you come to pick us up so late today?" "I'm hungry." Fong Bebe giggled and said greedily. It was indeed not early. It was already past 12 o'clock. Even if they went back to cook, they would only start eating after 1 o'clock. Kiki knows that Papa was scolded. Grandpa Chun is with Papa. In the morning, Kiki and a few of her friends secretly took the master's wife's mobile phone to call Poplar Fruit. She couldn't wait to share the news with her sister Bebe. "It's not that I was scolded. In fact, several school leaders came to see me. Later, the teacher told me some principles of how to conduct myself." Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Bebe, who was a little worried, and said with a smile. He touched Kiki's little head and said with a smile, "Kiki might have misunderstood." Kiki didn't. Kiki pouted her little mouth, turned her head and said, "Grandma told Kiki." Fong Bebe covered her mouth and giggled. Back home, Fong Bebe put Kiki down and let her play with Goldie, who was very happy to see the little master come back. She went into the kitchen, washed her hands and prepared to help Poplar Fruit prepare lunch. "What are you thinking about?" Fong Bebe turned around and saw Poplar Fruit, who was wearing his apron halfway, and then looking at her in a daze. Poplar Fruit's somewhat absent-minded eyes suddenly focused. He looked at his girlfriend affectionately. Although she didn't wear makeup and didn't pay much attention to her appearance, this gentle and cute girl with messy bangs on her forehead was the girl he wanted to protect forever. "I missed you." Poplar Fruit boldly pulled Fong Bebe's wet little hand, turned around, and blocked the kitchen door with his body. "I haven't seen you for a few hours. I missed you so much. Do you want to do something bad again?" Fong Bebe's cheeks were dyed red by Poplar Fruit's affectionate eyes. She shyly reached out and pinched the soft flesh on Poplar Fruit's waist and said reproachfully, "It's broad daylight. And Kiki is still here," Fong Bebe said softly. "Then let's leave the bad things for tonight and kiss now?" Poplar Fruit pressed Fong Bebe's soft shoulders and whispered into her fine fluffy ears. "Kiss kiss." Fong Bebe's body went limp from Yonggua's whispers. She murmured, and the emotions in her eyes almost melted into water. They were watery like two pearls that belonged to the sea. Poplar Fruit took another step forward, held Fong Bebe's soft waist with one hand, and gently lifted Fong Bebe's chin with the other hand. he said tenderly. Baby, I love you. Fang Beibei put both hands on her boyfriend's waist as if she was drunk. Her eyes were a little blurry, and she wanted to respond. I also, oh. The kitchen became quiet. Thank you to the readers at Qidian for your tips, and thank you for your monthly votes. Although I won't get any awards, Xiao Han is still very grateful. Because at least the ranking is higher, and more readers will read Xiao Han's book. Chapter 9:14. When I was in Sweden, I met a bus driver who spoke with a very bad accent. The small auditorium of Higashiyama University was shabby, but it was also the first choice for many famous people to give lectures. On one hand, the building had an ancient and traditional history. On the other hand, the location was special. It was located on the central axis of Higashiyama University. It was like a beautiful sea-stabilizing needle. Behind it was the motto and emblem of Higashiyama University. When Poplar Fruit was an undergraduate student, he sat in the small auditorium countless times to listen to other people's speeches and watch other people's award ceremonies. He never thought that one day, he would be able to stand on this stage and give an impassioned speech. He was very calm, facing the students that filled the small auditorium, and facing the 2 rows of university leaders who came to support him. Poplar Fruit acted like he usually did in class. He spoke with confidence and assurance. Because it was a group of relatives and friends, Fang Beibei and Kiki also sat in the front row. She was embarrassed to sit with the principal and teachers, so she changed to sit in the student union area. Fang Beibei was also a member of the student union. Although she didn't have much interaction with the student union, after all, they were all young people, so it was not awkward to interact with each other. She looked down at Kiki and found that the little girl was staring at her father on the stage. At this time, the little girl was sleepy and yawning, but now she was still energetic. If there was a Best Audience Award, Kiki would definitely not let it go. She was more serious than the most serious student, and she didn't even blink her eyes. Kiki, can you understand what your father is saying? Fang Beibei turned Kiki around and teased her. Chi-Chi reluctantly turned her head back to look at her father, and then turned her head back. She puffed up her cheeks and said very righteously, Chi-Chi doesn't understand. Fang Beibei understood the stories that Poplar Fruit told, but she didn't understand some of the linguistic theories that Poplar Fruit sometimes inadvertently said. Although Poplar Fruit stopped very quickly, not only was everyone not confused by Poplar Fruit's words, but they also felt that Poplar Fruit was very mysterious. After all, many of the students present were not from the outer court. Even if they were from the outer court, they wouldn't be able to keep up with the professional knowledge that Yang Guo was talking about even if they weren't graduate students or doctoral students. Since today's lecture was for the general public, Poplar Fruit would be more popular and tell stories to everyone, and be a spiritual mentor. I don't understand. Why are you still so serious? Fang Beibei let Kiki hold her fingers and asked with a smile. Because Papa is very powerful. Kiki said with a look of admiration. Kiki's Papa is the best. The little girl used these words over and over again, but if Poplar Fruit heard his daughter's praise, he would definitely be happy. Fang Beibei pressed Kiki's small lips and said with a smile, lower your voice, don't let your father hear it, otherwise who knows how many days he will show off. Below the stage, Fang Beibei and Kiki were secretly playing with each other, but Poplar Fruit did not know. At this moment his mood was not calm. Although he had been smiling and talking about his prepared speech, and from time to time had a brief interaction with the audience, but in fact, he was multitasking, and his other mind was not here for a long time. The official start is at 7:30, I said an hour, and it's almost 8:30, right? It should be at this time. In the spiritual world where no one could see, Poplar Fruit frowned in thought. Can it work? Poplar Fruit was not completely sure, because it was the first time he used it, and he did not have a real human test. Back to the time when night had just fallen. Gan Juanji came to the nightclub he frequented most, and the valet ran over and greeted him. Brother Ji, you haven't been here for a long time. Wow, you got a new car? Hee hee, I'm free today so I came out to have fun. Gan Juanji threw the key to him and smiled in a good mood. Give me some thoughts, don't scratch it. This car was given to him by his father as compensation for being grounded. Got it. The valet chuckled. Entering the nightclub. The nightclub was not completely lively, but the heater was on. Gan Juanji unbuttoned his jacket, walked to the bar, lit a cigarette, and chatted with the bartender there. Because his family was rich and powerful, and he was generous, everyone was very polite to him. Ahow, I haven't been here for a few days, are there any good new goods? Gan Juanji asked while smoking. The bartender, ahow, made him a glass of ice blue and fiery red ice and fire, as if he was performing acrobatics. He inserted a small olive strung with a toothpick as decoration, and handed it over. Then he received 2 tips and replied with a smile. Yes, yes. Where is it? Gan Juanji was not in a hurry to drink. He held the cigarette in his mouth, looked around and asked. Hee brother Ji, don't be so anxious. The bartender, ahow, laughed. They seem to be white-collar workers. They won't be here so soon. Wait a little longer. They should be here around 8 o'clock. White-collar? Interesting, I'll wait. Gan Juanji licked his lips and smiled wretchedly. He extinguished the half-finished cigarette in his hand, picked up the wine glass that was barely enough for 2 mouthfuls, and prepared to take a sip. Oh! Suddenly Gan Juanji felt his heart palpitate. He was not afraid of anything, but his heart really shook. He could not help but cover his chest and frown. Brother Ji, what's wrong? Ahao looked at him nervously and asked. Nothing. Gan Juanji shook his head, let go of his hand, drank a mouthful of wine and laughed. Illusion, maybe I've been at home for too long. The palpitating feeling came and went quickly. Gan Juanji thought he was mistaken. He did not have any heart problems, so he was naturally very calm. Give me another glass of Angel's Kiss. Gan Juanji smacked his lips and finished the glass of ice and fire. He felt that it was not so satisfying, so he waved his hand and greeted Ahao. Brother Ji, drinking so much, will it affect your performance later? The bartender, Ahao, would not refuse money. He just kindly reminded him, but the movement of his hands did not stop. How can it be? You dare to underestimate your brother Ji's drinking capacity? Gan Juanji knocked on the table and said with dissatisfaction. No, of course not. The bartender, Ahao, handed the wine over and said with a smile. After drinking this glass, Gan Juanji also felt a little tipsy. He did not try to be brave and ran to the dance floor to play. Dance, sweat a little, and the alcohol will evaporate later. Gan Juanji, who has been on the battlefield for a long time, is familiar with it. He did not know how long he played, but there were more and more people, and the atmosphere was getting hotter and hotter, but it was far from the most lively time. Gan Juanji was sweating, but he returned to the bar in high spirits. Refreshing. Gan Juanji shouted. He was grounded for a few days, and he was full of anger. Now he vented some of it. Brother Ji, the white-collar beauties are here. The bartender, Ahao, winked at him and smiled. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations, greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 9:15. Come on, let's drink. I'll cover all the expenses of the beauties today. Appearing as a rich and handsome man, Gan Juanji quickly sat in the booth of the 3 white-collar beauties. He even waved his hand and said very generously. Under the shining laser lights of the nightclub, Gan Juanji felt that the 3 beauties were not bad. After makeup, their lips were flaming red, and the main thing was that their bodies were hot enough. If he could have sex with 1, 2, or even 3 at the same time, it would be really good. Not far away, the bartender Hao shook his head and sighed. Women nowadays don't love themselves. As he played with the mixing glass, he thought funny in his heart. Forget it, they don't care. Why are you worried about them? Isn't this world just about looks and money? Just as the bartender Ahao was feeling sorry for himself, the booth that Gan Juanji had just walked into suddenly became chaotic. 3 women in low-v white-collar attire with pale faces stumbled out from inside. Someone's dead. Someone's dead. They screamed in horror. A few people who had just come out of the dance floor and were about to take a rest at the side curiously looked into the booth. The booth was originally just surrounded by 2 higher sofas and was not sealed at all. They immediately saw the situation inside. As soon as they saw it, they also panicked. They pulled their companions and ran. In a panic, they didn't know where to go and even bumped into other people. They also shouted, "Someone's dead, run." The already noisy nightclub became even noisier. When the bartender house saw the situation over there, he was surprised and called a few people who were guarding the venue to check the situation. "What's the situation? Why are you running?" A guy with a tattoo on his arm grabbed a white-collar woman who was running away in a panic and asked, "Someone's dead, he's not breathing. It's none of my business." The woman's tears flowed out. She struggled desperately, and her high heels fell off on the ground. The bartender recognized this woman. Although the powder on her face was washed into a mess by tears, she was one of the white-collar women that the rich young man had just walked over to hook up with. His heart skipped a beat. The bartender said to the guy, "Brother Wolf, something seems to have happened. Catch this woman, and see what's going on first." The bartender, how, and the rest of the guys rushed to the booth where the incident happened. When they went in to take a look, they saw a man lying on the sofa with a pale face. His hands were grabbing the clothes on his chest, and he was curled up into a ball. When Ahau and the others came over, that person was already motionless. "Brother Ji." The bartender, Ahau, took a deep breath and shouted in horror. That's right, the man lying on the sofa like a dead man was the high-spirited Ganjuanji. No, he wasn't dead. He's already dead. A bold worker came over and checked his breathing. He shook his head and said, "Let's inform Big Brother and see how we should deal with this," a worker said. "I don't think so. His family is very rich. Even the Gon family in Westbridge is not someone our Big Brother dares to mess with. Let's call the police. The most important thing is to get rid of us." Bartender Ahau said anxiously. The worker nodded with a serious expression and said to the others, "You guys tell the boss and then call the police. Also, keep an eye on that woman. Don't let her slip away. Actually, I think that his death might have nothing to do with us. Look at his hand." Bartender Ahau muttered to him. "It's probably a heart attack. He seemed to have a problem when he came just now." The nightclub was in chaos. Poplar Fruit didn't know about it. At that time, he reached out and transferred his internal force into Ganjuanji's heart. He condensed his internal force into a liquid state and used a special method to maintain it for a period of time. When he was in Sweden, he had tried it on small insects. This special method could allow his internal force to be maintained for about 9 hours after it left his body. At around 8:30, this seal would completely lose its effect. After the seal lost its effect, the internal force that left the poplar fruit's body would disappear and disperse between heaven and earth. Unless it was deliberately done by the poplar fruit, this internal force would not have any healing effect on others. Otherwise, the poplar fruit would not be practicing martial arts, but a medical machine. Not only that, this internal force was invisible to the inner eye and could not be detected by instruments, but it had a strong effect on the human body. When the liquid internal force that the poplar fruit had hidden in Ganjuanji's body was about to dissipate, it had to first transform into a gaseous state, and then spread out. This speed was very fast, and it did not give people time to react at all. Although it was small, not necessarily bigger than a dust particle, the strong expansion effect was enough to make Ganjuanji's cardiovascular system explode. If his cardiovascular system exploded, only death would await him. Moreover, it would be a sudden death. It would not give Ganjuanji a chance to save himself or even call for help. Regardless of whether it succeeded or not, the poplar fruit had already planted this seed at noon. Although he was slightly nervous, in the small auditorium, the person that people saw was still the humorous, witty, and talkative big boy. Time ticked by. Kiki, who was below the stage, could no longer fight against sleepiness. She fell asleep in the arms of Sister Bebe, wrapped in clothes. The poplar fruit's speech was gradually coming to an end. Poplar Fruit said with emotion, "Many people say that I have achieved great things, and many students also regard me as an idol or a star. In fact, Poplar Fruit is just like the students here, an ordinary student at Higashiyama University." The audience began to clap. Poplar Fruit pressed his hands down to stop them from clapping. He had not finished speaking yet. In Sweden, teacher Emoyen once said, "I am a storyteller. Because of my storytelling, I won the Nobel Prize in Literature. In fact, today I am just like teacher Emoyen. I am just a storyteller. Today, I am standing in front of everyone to tell you the interesting stories that have happened on my academic path. Of course, I am not telling you these stories to teach you life philosophy. Poplar Fruit is not qualified to be everyone's sole teacher." Poplar Fruit smiled. The audience chuckled in response. "I just hope that you will be able to obtain happiness while listening to these stories. In other words, you will discover that there are still many interesting and novel experiences on the path of learning." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Learn happily, grow happily, and then walk happily into the world outside the ivory tower." The audience began to clap. However, Poplar Fruit stopped them once again. This time, everyone looked at him in confusion. "The applause means that my speech is over. After that, you will all leave the stage. If you don't hear the next news, I am afraid that you will suffer a great loss," Poplar Fruit said with a bright smile. Below the stage, there was some discussion and some laughter. Poplar Fruit smiled. "When I was in Sweden, the school gave me a mission. I had to invite teacher Emoyen, who won the Nobel Prize in Literature, back to share his experience with everyone. I also passed this request to teacher Emoyen." He paused. The audience was already quiet. Everyone took a deep breath and looked at him excitedly, as if they were waiting for him to say the good news that was on the verge of coming out. Poplar Fruit did not keep them in suspense. He said in a clear voice, "Here, I can tell everyone. Teacher Emoyen has given me a clear answer. When school reopens next year, he will choose a time to come to our school to give a speech. So everyone, please look forward to it." Poplar Fruit's final words were drowned out by the excited applause of the students. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to. Chapter 9:16. The next day was the weekend. Poplar Fruit and Fong Bebe didn't have classes. The weather was good, so the family went shopping and bought some things. In the evening, they went to Fong Bebe's house for dinner. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve. Fong Bebe took Poplar Fruit's hand and asked with a smile, "Uncle, what gift are you going to give me?" "Gift. Kiki wants a gift." Chi-Chi, who was tightly wrapped up, heard elder sister Bebe mention a present in a daze. She immediately became happy and pulled down the large scarf covering her mouth, revealing her red, pouty little mouth as she started to cry out. "Well," Poplar Fruit scratched his head, pretending to be hesitant. Fong Bebe immediately glanced over, stamped her feet, and said suspiciously, "Don't tell me you forgot this?" "How could it be?" Poplar Fruit raised his voice and laughed. He rubbed Fong Bebe's head and said intimately, "I can forget anything but this. I've already prepared a gift. Kiki also has one, but Kiki's is a Christmas gift. I can't tell you in advance. Otherwise, you won't have the feeling of opening the gift." "So mysterious," Fong Bebe muttered. In fact, she was very happy because this was the first time that Poplar Fruit prepared a gift for her in advance. "Papa, what's the Christmas gift?" Kiki asked curiously. She saw that her father didn't look at her. She pulled her father's ear and repeated this sentence like a repeater. Although Kiki was wearing gloves and it didn't hurt her father's ear, she was very noisy. Poplar Fruit had to explain to Kiki, "Christmas gift, it starts with Christmas." When the family went shopping and bought clothes, Poplar Fruit told Kiki about Santa Claus who would come from the sky in a sleigh pulled by Cicadere at night, and Christmas gifts in socks when she woke up, and other fairy tales made Kiki happy. However, there was a debate about Poplar Fruit on the internet. The reason for this debate was the news that was uploaded early in the morning. The first heir of the Gon family in Yongqing City suddenly died of myocardial infarction in XXX nightclub. People were talking about how this young Master Gon was smoking, drinking, and flirting with women before he died. Did this guy do something in the nightclub? Then suddenly died on a woman's belly? Of course, the media soon cited the police investigation to clarify this matter. There was no such thing as XXX in the nightclub. After the autopsy, It was determined that he died of excessive smoking and drinking, which caused his heart to overload. However, not only were the audience dissatisfied, some non-official media also didn't want to minimize the matter. They dug deeper to see if there was any more shocking news. They didn't expect that with such digging, young Master Gon's background and character would be exposed in front of the people. Rich second generation, likes to show off his wealth, likes to race, likes to go to nightclubs, and changes women like changing clothes. Anyway, as long as it was a rich second generation's fault, this young Master Gon had it. There was even news that he took a high school student to have an abortion. Many netizens angrily commented, "Scum. He deserved to die. God is watching what people do." At this time, a netizen suddenly pointed out in surprise, "This young Master Gon. Isn't he that bastard Gon Juanji who splashed dirty water on Weibo at the beginning of the month?" This was still considered a true fan. Not a true fan happily pointed out, "This man has played with so many women. I don't know if Poplar Fruit's girlfriend has been played with before." Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei's fans immediately fought back. "Play your sister." Poplar Fruit already said that Fong Beibei's first love was unworthy, but they hadn't developed to that point yet. No matter who won the argument, a netizen made a shocking discovery that changed the topic of discussion about Gon Juanji on the internet. First, Qin Shui, who previously hyped up Poplar Fruit, was arrested by the police for drug possession and suspected of drug trafficking. Now Gon Juanji, who also slandered Poplar Fruit on the internet, is also in trouble. It's a serious matter and he's dead. This discovery was immediately forwarded. Some netizens joked, "Sigh, this is really strange. Could it be that if you provoke this Poplar Fruit, you might die without knowing why? Dear, you're in big trouble. If you dare to expose Poplar Fruit on the internet, be careful not to die an unnatural death." The netizens caused a ruckus on the internet. They actually didn't take it that seriously. They just found a topic that could be used as a topic to talk about after a meal, and were in a good mood. However, some people who thought they were Sherlock Holmes or Conan started to search for news about Poplar Fruit, and were surprised. Did you find anything? Poplar Fruit has only been back for 2 days. And he went straight back to Yangcheng, the same city as Gon Juanji. He had just returned, and this enemy was already dead. Do you think there's something fishy going on here? Maybe it was Poplar Fruit who killed him. That's possible. I have an interview with the new generation martial arts student, Cheon Juan. A netizen quoted a screenshot of the news and said reasonably, "Didn't Cheon Juan say that Poplar Fruit's kung fu was better than his?" In an instant, conspiracy theories became synonymous with online discussions. There were even netizens who wanted the police to investigate Poplar Fruit. It's him, he's the murderer. If Poplar Fruit didn't go shopping and stayed at home to browse the internet, he would definitely be shocked by the netizens. His imagination was really running wild. Even a blind guess could guess the truth. At this time, some students from Higashiyama University couldn't stand it anymore. They found a video of Poplar Fruit's speech recorded by the Higashiyama University Student Union and uploaded it to the internet. Who said that Poplar Fruit is the murderer? Stand up. I can tell you clearly that last night when that scumbag Gon Juanji died, our Poplar Fruit was giving a speech to us. There were hundreds of people present who can testify for him. If you weren't there, please tell me how Poplar Fruit killed him? Using his mind to kill? Please don't joke with me, okay? In this world, no one would be able to guess how Poplar Fruit killed Gon Juanji without spilling a drop of blood. Unless there really was a deity who came down to earth and caught evidence of Poplar Fruit using his internal energy to cheat. Poplar Fruit didn't say anything about this incident on the internet. Even when he went to the Fong family and his parents talked about it, he and Fong Beibei just sighed and didn't mention that person again. At this time, people's attention was slowly being diverted by 2 things on the internet. The first thing was Poplar Fruit's speech. The video of his speech was spread because of this incident. This made people who liked Poplar Fruit even more. Our Appa is so talented. It also made people who didn't know Poplar Fruit gradually understand Poplar Fruit. This young man has the talent to be a speaker. The second thing was the upcoming Christmas Day. This Christmas Day had a special meaning. In front of them, People had just passed the hotly discussed 2012, December 21st, 2012. Behind them, they were welcoming a new life, and the most festive and lively Western festival. How did Poplar Fruit and the others spend it? Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations, greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 917. Kiki helped Daddy pick up that small ball. Before Poplar Fruit's voice fell, a white and tender little hand holding a small golden plastic ball in front of him. Turning his head, he saw Kiki standing there with an excited look on her face. It turned out that the little fellow was already ready to help her father. Just now, when the small ball was not firmly hung and fell to the ground, Kiki immediately pounced on it with her butt sticking out. The Christmas tree is so small. Chi-Chi bounced around her father's side and chattered with him. At this moment, her mood was as excited as a mountain child who had climbed over a mountain and seen the beautiful sea. It's as tall as Kiki. Kiki jumped to the opposite side of Poplar Fruit, shaking her little butt, giggling, and gestured to herself. Because our family can't buy a bigger Christmas tree, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. By such a big Christmas tree, where should we put it? He bought the Christmas tree just to adjust the festive atmosphere, unlike in foreign countries, where Christmas trees and roast turkeys were regarded as symbols of Christmas. Put it in Kiki's bed. Kiki rolled her eyes, then clapped her little hands and happily said, "That way Santa Claus can give Kiki a lot of gifts." "You wish." Poplar Fruit smiled and pinched Kiki's little nose. He handed the golden ball to Kiki and said, "Come Kiki, help Daddy hang it." And then, Chi-Chi likes to help Papa the most. The little fellow did not forget to take credit for her work. She took it, stood on her tiptoes, and wanted to follow her father to hang the small ball. However, she seemed to be unable to find the key point. The curious Goldie wagged its tail and walked over. It wriggled and wriggled between Chi-Chi and the Christmas tree. Then it pushed Chi-Chi away. This way, Chi-Chi could not hang on the little golden ball. Daddy, Goldie is making trouble. It won't help Kiki with Daddy's work." Kiki pouted, pointed at Goldie and complained. Goldie wagged its tail, moved its head closer, and intimately licked Kiki's finger. As a result, Kiki suddenly squatted down and pushed away Goldie, who only came to please its master. Although Kiki was young, her strength was not small at all. In terms of strength, Goldie was no match for her at all. Poplar Fruit smiled and helped Kiki hold down the innocent Goldie, and let Kiki try to hang the golden ball on the Christmas tree. When Kiki hung herself, she felt a sense of accomplishment. Her eyes became crescent moons, and she jumped up and down holding her father's hand. She pointed at the Christmas tree and said, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, look. Kiki, hang the ball at the highest point." Poplar Fruit held his daughter's face, kissed her forehead and said with a smile, "Kiki is great. Come, let's hang these little balls and little stars up with Daddy." When the father and daughter were almost done decorating the Christmas tree, Fong Beibei also came back. She just went to school in the morning and did not go to class. She just reviewed in the library. She was different from Poplar Fruit. No matter how Poplar Fruit took the exam, he was almost guaranteed to pass the final exam. Fong Beibei, on the other hand, had to seize the time to review. English, Mahjong, and other disgusting non-professional subjects gave her a headache. Even if Poplar Fruit tutored her, she still had to do the questions and memorize the books. "Wow. You finished assembling the Christmas tree so quickly?" Fong Beibei asked with a smile. "Kiki, tell me, who decorated the Christmas tree so beautifully?" Fong Beibei asked this question, but in fact, the answer was already known. When Kiki was helping, Poplar Fruit secretly took a photo, and not only did he post it on Weibo, but he also sent it to Fong Beibei. "It's Kiki." Kiki happily ran out and raised her little hand to ask for praise. She was also afraid that Sister Beibei could not see it, so she jumped high and repeated these 3 words. "Wow. Kiki is so smart and awesome." Fong Beibei gave 2 thumbs up and praised Kiki with a smile. At this time Kiki was a little shy. She said bashfully, "There's also Papa." Goldie wagged its tail and walked up from behind. Kiki noticed it and immediately complained, "There's no Goldie. Goldie is a troublemaker." After playing with Kiki for a while, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei went to the kitchen to prepare tonight's dinner. Fong Beibei also bought vegetables when she came back. Uncle, do you think we should invite other people over for Christmas? Fong Beibei pretended to ask casually while picking vegetables. Well, you want to invite Shan Shan and the others, right? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Then I'll buy more vegetables tomorrow. Tell me how many people will come first. Not them. Fong Beibei said. Not them? Then who else? Poplar Fruit asked. Mosquito and Enlon? I forgot to tell you, they went to Harbor City to watch the fireworks. They are not in Yangcheng. Watch the fireworks? So romantic? Fong Beibei said casually. I'm not talking about them. Poplar Fruit really didn't understand what Fong Beibei was up to. Fong Beibei's voice was very low. She didn't dare to raise her head and look at Poplar Fruit, Sister Zhang Yujia. Poplar Fruit was a little confused when he heard Fong Beibei say this name. On the day when he came back, he saw Zhang Yujia and Fong Beibei together. He thought that Mars was going to collide with the Earth. Fortunately, after they talked about it, Fong Beibei didn't mention her again. Zhang Yujia had just taken over New Translation Road Publishing House. And it happened that it was almost the end of the year. She was so busy that she didn't have time to talk to Poplar Fruit. So, it seemed that the storm had subsided. However, Poplar Fruit really underestimated the vigilance between women. Why did you call her? Poplar Fruit asked with a headache. Shouldn't we be celebrating Christmas on our own? You just said it's okay. Fong Beibei raised her head, her eyes somewhat evasive as she said. Is she that special? Although she was avoiding his eyes, her tone was firm. She wanted Poplar Fruit to give her an answer. Poplar Fruit was speechless. No matter how low his EQ was, he knew what was going on. Poplar Fruit shook his head and continued to deal with the plucked chicken. Okay, I know you're still a little unhappy. Stop it. Didn't we talk about it last time? You can't be jealous anymore. I just think that she's all alone in Yangcheng. Fong Beibei shrunk her head. She knew that Poplar Fruit was a little angry, but she couldn't help but mutter a few words. If you say it again, I'll spank your butt tonight. Poplar Fruit laughed and said. And I'll spank you with your pants off. Do you know what it's called tonight? Aya. Uncle, you're so evil. Fong Beibei said angrily. She patted the water and smiled as she sprinkled some water on Yanghua. This time, she didn't make a fuss. She knew Poplar Fruit's temper and bottom line. Actually, she's not alone in Yangcheng. Poplar Fruit thought for a while and explained. Her dad also works in Yangcheng, so you don't have to worry about her. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations, greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 9:18. Normally, they should go to a restaurant outside for a romantic Christmas Eve, but Fong Beibei said that eating outside in a restaurant was not as warm as eating at home. Poplar Fruit thought that it was quite reasonable. Now that it was cold outside, Fong Beibei would rather stay at home if she didn't have to go to school. Let's have a candlelight dinner tonight. Poplar Fruit found the candlestick and long red candles that he bought yesterday, lit 2 of them and placed them on the table. I'll turn off the light. Fong Beibei took off her apron and casually hung it on the back of the chair. She trotted to turn off the light, and with a burst of bell-like laughter, all the lights in the room went out at once. Oh, where's Papa? Kiki is scared. Kiki was just playing in the living room when she suddenly couldn't see her fingers. The little girl instinctively hugged Gold, who was lying next to her, and cried out in fear. In fact, there were 2 flickering candlelight in the room, but the human eye had a certain delay reaction. After the bright incandescent light went out, it would take a while for the human eye to adapt. Here, Sister Beibei is here. Without waiting for Poplar Fruit to answer, Fong Beibei trotted to Kiki and hugged her. She was in a good mood. Compared to just now, Fong Beibei returned to the lively and lovely girl that a young girl should be. In fact, it was not difficult to understand why Fong Beibei was a little narrow-minded with Poplar Fruit just now. Zhang Yujie gave her too much pressure at the airport, and even almost broke her self-confidence. Although Poplar Fruit promised her that he would not change his mind, she still felt a little uncertain in her heart. Fong Beibei was also sensible. She knew that Poplar Fruit's translation career was very important. She did not dare to suggest that Poplar Fruit cut off contact with Zheng Yujia, who was the boss of Poplar Fruit. She was also afraid that Poplar Fruit would think that she was too spoiled and would not like her. Therefore, even though she felt uneasy, Fang Beibei was only jealous to the extent that Poplar Fruit could tolerate. She wanted to make Poplar Fruit understand her feelings. Of course, there was also the intention of acting coquettishly and asking for a hug. Be careful, don't fall down yourself. Poplar Fruit reminded him with a smile. He put away his and Fang Beibei's aprons, washed his hands and prepared to eat. After adapting to the candlelight, Kiki was finally not afraid. She did not need Sister Beibei to hug her. She asked to sit in her own exclusive seat, so that she could have more freedom. Kiki, don't touch it. Fang Beibei shouted, and reached out to stop Kiki's little hand that was reaching for the candle. Sister Beibei, what is this? Kiki asked curiously. This is a candle, Fang Beibei said with a smile. Suddenly, Kiki pouted her little mouth and said, Sister Beibei is lying. Candles are not like this. Candles are so small. Blow out the candles and eat the cake. The little girl also gestured with her little finger. Her tone was very sure. This is also a candle, a bigger candle. Poplar Fruit smiled and touched his daughter's head, then continued to pick up the chopsticks and spoon for Kiki's favorite dishes. Blow out the candles and eat the cake. Kiki cried out happily. She pouted her little mouth and blew, making the candlelight sway. It was very beautiful. Don't make trouble. Where is the cake? Poplar Fruit smiled and pushed the candlestick away, otherwise Kiki could reach it. He said, Today is not your birthday. When it's your birthday, Dad will buy you a big cake. No, Kiki said disappointedly. She was a little depressed. Fang Beibei reached out to Kiki's hand and said with a smile, Kiki, it's okay. Hurry up and eat, then go back to your room to see if the socks are hung up properly. Today, after Kiki falls asleep, Santa Claus will come to give Kiki a present. Oh, Santa Claus. Kiki remembered, and her eyes suddenly lit up. She could not wait to twist her slender waist and shout. Kiki is going to have a present. Yes, and there are two. Fang Beibei turned to look at Poplar Fruit, and the two of them looked at each other and smiled. With Kiki causing trouble, this candlelight dinner was not very romantic. However, it was full of warmth and joy. After coaxing Kiki, who wanted to wait for Santa Claus, to sleep, Poplar Fruit walked out and sat down beside Fang Beibei. Where's the present? Fang Beibei did not hesitate in front of Poplar Fruit. She sat up on her knees and stretched out her white palm with a smile. There was not much sun this year, and Fang Beibei's skin was much fairer than before. Of course, it was not that she did not look good before. White and tender had its beauty, and wheat-colored skin had its charm. Looking away from his girlfriend's hand, Poplar Fruit smiled and said to Fang Beibei, What? Can't wait? If you don't send me off, Christmas Eve will be over. Fang Beibei said with a pout. Okay. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Close your eyes first. Okay. Fang Beibei obediently closed her eyes. However, she felt uncomfortable kneeling, so she raised her butt and changed to a cross-legged position. She raised her head and looked expectant. Poplar Fruit seemed to have walked 2 steps and turned back. He smiled and said, You can open your eyes now. Fang Beibei expectantly opened her eyes. She saw red in front of her. She tilted her head back and saw 2 big red apples. Why are they apples? Fang Beibei said with some disappointment. Don't you like apples? Poplar Fruit pretended to pick up the apples and looked at them. He asked with some regret, Aren't you supposed to give me apples on Christmas Eve? It's not that I don't like it. It's just that, in fact, this apple is also very good. One for you and one for me. Well, it's very beautiful. Fang Beibei was afraid that Poplar Fruit would be unhappy. She quickly took the apple and looked at it, trying to convince herself that she liked this gift. Well, why don't you take a look at this apple? When Fang Beibei lowered her head, Poplar Fruit took out a box with a smirk and put it in front of her eyes. Fang Beibei was still somewhat unable to extricate herself from the contradictory emotions. She looked at the box in confusion. After a long time, She still couldn't figure out the relationship between them. Poplar Fruit didn't explain. He just looked at her with a smile. "Oh, uncle, you're so bad. You lied to me." Fong Beibei finally reacted. She patted Poplar Fruit's arm in surprise and took the box in Poplar Fruit's hand. "Why did you give me a phone?" After Fong Beibei opened the gift box, she took out the new iPhone 5 that Poplar Fruit put in it, and asked puzzledly, "Because this way we can use the same phone." Poplar Fruit smiled and took out the iPhone 5 that was exactly the same as Fong Beibei's. This phone was only released in the second half of this year. Hee, a couple's phone. Fong Beibei took Poplar Fruit's phone, and then leaned on Poplar Fruit's arms to fiddle with it. Fong Beibei didn't have an iPhone, but she still often played with Poplar Fruit's phone, so she wasn't unfamiliar with the operating system. Poplar Fruit put his chin on Fong Beibei's head, his hands around her waist. He looked at Fong Beibei's smiling face as she raised the phone, and the two took a photo together. "This is our lock screen wallpaper. Hee, you're not allowed to change it." Fong Beibei raised the two phones and said to Poplar Fruit with a smile, "Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations." Chapter 919. In the end, nothing happened on Christmas Eve. Poplar Fruit was still able to control himself. Furthermore, his parents had mentioned this matter several times, and Fong Beibei did not have any intention of breaking through prematurely. Therefore, the night passed very peacefully. In fact, the relationship between the two had already reached the point where they could see each other with sincerity. Everything that needed to be done had been done, and only the last line of defense was left. However, from the looks of it, the breakthrough of this line of defense was just around the corner. After Christmas Eve, it was Christmas Day. The happiest person on Christmas Day was still Kiki. She received her presents early in the morning, and the two presents were opened so quickly that confetti covered the floor. After that, she asked her father to bring her to Chimelong Amusement Park to play for the entire morning. As Fong Beibei had to revise, they returned in the afternoon. Kiki loves Christmas the most. After the little fellow returned, her excitement did not diminish as she chirped, "Isn't your favorite birthday the most?" Poplar Fruit teased her. That's right. The little fellow was in a dilemma. She stood in the same place, scratching her head as she thought about it. It seemed that it was very difficult for her to choose. That's still my favorite birthday. There's cake to eat on my birthday." In the end, Chi-Chi reluctantly ranked them in order. Holding her father's hand, she didn't really care at all. She commented seriously, "Christmas is Chi-Chi's second favorite." At this time, Higashiyama University had fully entered the revision week. In another 2 weeks, it would be the exam week. Therefore, not only was Fong Beibei busy, Poplar Fruit's New Dimension Society was also beginning to wrap up work. In the next few days, they would be conducting online long-distance end-of-term exams for the children to test the learning effects of this semester. Of course, the long-distance education did not end at the end of the semester. As long as the children were willing, there would still be some enthusiastic teachers, including Poplar Fruit, to stay behind during the winter break, to give them preferential treatment. However, the study during the break was not compulsory, and the children could choose to come or not. In addition, Poplar Fruit was still planning to bring Fong Beibei, Kiki, and the current executive chairman of the society, Wang Yuba, as well as Lin Xingshan, who was the best teacher of the semester, to Xiong Family Village to interact with the children. Of course, he was not going there to join in the New Year's fun, nor was he thinking of bringing the children to see the outside world. This idea, after the discussion of the society's backbone, they decided to do it during the summer break. The reason why he wanted to go to Xiong Family Village was mainly because Poplar Fruit also needed to do a half-year evaluation with Meng Ping to make a summary report on the results of his long-distance education. Meng Ping told him that if he applied for it from the province, the next semester, the long-distance education would be fully implemented in Lidong County. It would benefit 6 towns, 16 remote mountain villages, and more than 4,000 poor students who could not go to school or whose education level was too low. Of course, this was only for primary school. Junior high education was not something that Poplar Fruit could afford with dozens of university students who had not received proper teacher training. After doing some calculations, Poplar Fruit had spent about 2 million yuan to set up classrooms and equipment for more than 300 children in Xiong Family Village. Now it was more than 10 times that amount. That meant that he had to spend nearly 30 million yuan. Poplar Fruit was not worried about not having enough money this time, because Meng Ping told him that the government would not let Poplar Fruit use all of his money. If all of it was used by private or charitable organizations to support the poverty alleviation education in a county, wouldn't the government lose face? He would fight for the education funds and at least get half of the cost. In this way, if Poplar Fruit's long-distance education charity fund was only 10 million yuan, he could still afford it. Although when the fund was first set up, Poplar Fruit's own money and the donations from some of his foreign friends only amounted to about 30 million yuan, don't forget that Poplar Fruit's income from the copyright of New Translation Road was quite considerable. He had already donated more than 20 million yuan to the long-distance education charity fund, which was more than 60 to 70% of his income. Regardless of how selfless and noble Poplar Fruit was, the foundation with more than 50 million yuan was still considered a strong fund. Even if the number of poor students in Lidong County doubled, the fund was still enough to pay for all the children's education expenses. However, the upright Meng Ping stood from the perspective of the people and reminded Poplar Fruit, "You are cooperating with the government. If you don't want your money to be embezzled, and if you don't want the children's hopes to be dashed, you have to do your procurement properly. If the procurement is all handed over to the government personnel, embezzlement, and shoddy goods will definitely happen." Meng Ping had seen too many of these people in the impoverished Lizong County. Even after experiencing an anti-corruption storm, people were still greedy. After the investigation team left, didn't they still take what they wanted and take what they wanted? Meng Ping could guarantee that the Education Bureau under his control would not be in trouble, but he couldn't represent everyone, especially the Finance Bureau that was already in chaos. Every year, the education funds allocated by the higher-ups were not small, but after so many layers of exploitation, the Education Bureau did not have much. This time, Meng Ping even had to apply for a special fund to ensure that it would not be embezzled. Therefore, he needed Poplar Fruit's cooperation. Poplar Fruit was not stupid. He was very flexible in this aspect. After receiving Meng Ping's advice, Poplar Fruit began to think about how to use the money that would change the lives of poor children. The distance education charity fund he set up had to be transparent, open, and fair. Transparency and openness meant that the details of all the money spent, the whereabouts, and the implementation of the funds had to be listed on the website to ensure that everyone in the world could find it and maintain the supervision of the distance education charity fund. Being fair was not easy. At the very least, if the charity fund was controlled by one person, then there was no way to be fair. Poplar Fruit could not do it himself. He had to hand over this power and let more people participate, other than those with ulterior motives. Regardless of whether it was the appointment or dismissal of positions, some large expenditures also needed to be voted on. Of course, if it was just the distance education charity fund, it would not be enough to maintain its innocence. This was because it would not be able to prevent the corruption and influence of the government. Poplar Fruit needed to use the power of the public. In the quietly approaching 2013, Poplar Fruit needed to push distance education into the public's eyes and let everyone know about it. Only by putting this matter on the table and using the power of his millions of fans could he cut off the hands of those who had reached out to him. In 2013, Poplar Fruit had a long way to go. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 920. Most of the time, plans could not keep up with changes, and the person who had broken Poplar Fruit's plans time and time again was the same person, Poplar Fruit's mentor, Chen Zhongdai. Before the end of the semester, the old man called Poplar Fruit over. This semester, the old man was extremely satisfied with Poplar Fruit. The thesis that Poplar Fruit submitted at the end of last year could be said to have provided a programmatic explanation of the entire theory of translation. Although the theory of translation still needed to be perfected, Poplar Fruit's thesis had pretty much established his position in the field of translation theory. As for the preparation for the next semester, Poplar Fruit had also given the old man a satisfactory answer. Through several lectures at Cinda College, he had summed up valuable experience and accumulated a large number of lecture notes. After the school's evaluation and review, the old man told Poplar Fruit that in the next semester, Poplar Fruit would stop all substitute teaching work and focus on completing his own 2 public elective courses. Of these 2 public elective courses, the first one was Translation Theory and Practice. Theory was secondary, and practice was the main focus. Poplar Fruit would combine his own experience and lead the entire school, regardless of whether they were language majors or not, to practice actual translation. From the practice, they would experience and learn theoretical knowledge. The second course was called Basic Swedish. That's right, Poplar Fruit's public elective course did not teach other popular languages, but the recognized Poplar Fruit's strongest language, Swedish. In fact, Poplar Fruit's dozens of minor languages were very average. Even if he were to teach ancient Sanskrit, he would be able to handle it. However, Poplar Fruit's Swedish had been tested by the Nobel Prize in Literature Committee. The school also wanted to ride on the momentum of the Nobel Prize in Literature, so that students would not stay away when they saw that it was a foreign language. However, could one learn a language well in one semester? That was impossible. Not everyone could be as crazy as Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit himself also felt that it was unreasonable to open a new language course in the public elective course. One had to know that everyone chose the public elective course based on their own interests. If they chose a course in this semester, they would not choose it again in the next semester. Fortunately, the school had also clearly told Poplar Fruit that this was only a test. If Poplar Fruit's teaching was indeed good, they would change this public elective course into an internal elective course within the outer court. It was even possible to open up a separate major for Poplar Fruit in the future. This was all for the future. It was still a bit ridiculous to open up a separate major for Poplar Fruit. After all, even the best scalper would die of exhaustion if he had to support a major by himself. Chun Zongdai called Poplar Fruit over today not to inform him of any changes in the next semester, but to inform him of 2 announcements. This is not a question, this is a notice. Chun Zongdai said firmly, no matter what you say, you have to go to Macau to participate in this language forum on March 4th. This is not only an event in China. Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and some translation schools will also send representatives to participate. You are representing our school and our country. How can you just refuse? Teacher, do you have to make it sound so serious? Poplar Fruit smiled helplessly and said, look, the notice says that it's from March 4th to 6th, but I really have something to do at this time. Chun Zongdai asked unhappily, what can't you put it aside for now? I remember that I told you about this forum not long after you came back from Bali. Okay, don't give me any excuses. You're not allowed to take a leave this time. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and said, no. Teacher, March 6th is my girlfriend's birthday. Originally, I said that I would celebrate her birthday for her first time. I can't not be in Yangcheng on that day, right? Birthday is a small matter, but Fong Beibei's disappointment is a big matter. Poplar Fruit promised her that he would spend every birthday with her in the future. I say, are you really stupid or are you pretending to be stupid? Chun Zongdai's tone sounded as if he expected better from him. He scolded. I think you are really stupid. You are so stubborn and don't know how to be flexible. Poplar Fruit touched his head. He was confused by the scolding. If you want to celebrate her birthday, can you only celebrate it in Yangcheng? If you go to Macau to participate in the forum, can't you bring her with you? Chun Zongdai was so angry at Poplar Fruit that he laughed. He threw a book at him and said, there's an event in the forum during the day, so you two can do whatever you want at night. That's right. Poplar Fruit suddenly understood. He also scolded himself for being stupid. Why didn't he think of this? Chun Zongdai laughed and said, it's just Macau, it's not that far. You can bring her to play and she can help take care of Kiki. Don't ask your assistant to help you take care of your child. This time, you can't bring your assistant with you. Hee, I'll discuss it with her when I get back. Poplar Fruit scratched his head embarrassedly. He returned the book and prepared to run away. He did not want to let the old man continue to ridicule him. Where are you in a hurry to go? We're not done yet. Chen Zongdai knocked on the table unhappily and shouted. What else? Poplar Fruit could only move his butt back. Next semester, you don't only have the task of 2 public courses. On my side, I also have to give you more responsibilities. Otherwise, when you take 3 years of master's and doctorate, others will gossip that I let you in through the back door, Chen Zongdai said. Generally speaking, if a student wants to study for a doctorate, they have to go through 4 years of undergraduate studies, 2 to 3 years of graduate studies, and 3 or more years of doctorate, a total of more than 9 years. Language graduate students generally take 2 years, so it's relatively faster. The masters and doctorates are for those students who have good results in the postgraduate examination. However, according to the regulations, it also takes 5 years to complete the degree. The fastest is the masters and doctorates for medical students. They can get a doctorate in 8 years. Of course, the hardships are unknown to ordinary people. Poplar Fruit is a special case. With his own ability, it's not a problem to directly give him a doctorate. However, China's system is more rigid. It must be done step by step for so many years to get a certificate. Chen Zongdai reducing it to 3 years is already skirting the law. It's easy to be questioned by others. Fortunately, Chen Zongdai believes in Poplar Fruit's ability. As long as he proves everything with his ability, he believes that no one will revoke Poplar Fruit's doctorate after 3 years. Poplar Fruit has published 2 heavyweight papers in his first semester. It's obvious that Chen Zongdai has begun to build a foundation for him that others can't find fault with. Next semester, Beijing Foreign Studies University will send people over for an exchange. The leader is Luolin, someone you know. When Chen Zongdai said these words, there was still a hint of disdain. This is his own pride. When the time comes, you don't have to hide anything. Do what you have to do. Let them see the foundation of Higashiyama University. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Teacher, weren't you worried that Professor Luo would take our credit? *T, I'm worried about him? Chen Zongdai jumped up as if someone stepped on his foot. It's that old man who is cunning. It's okay. Now that your paper has been published, no one can take your credit. Show them generously and let them study together. Our Higashiyama University is the top university in Guangdong Province. You have to have the bearing of a senior colonel, understand? Poplar Fruit snickered and didn't answer. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 921. How far is it? Why do I feel that we can't reach the end of this mountain road? Wang Yuba's tenacity was not as good as Lin Xingshan's. Halfway up the mountain, he was panting and complaining. It's not far. Just a quarter of an hour, a little more, and we'll be there. Xiong Jisher, who was next to him, smiled and asked in very ordinary Mandarin, Can you do it? Do you want me to help you? Now many children on the mountain were fluent in Mandarin after learning from the students and teachers of Higashiyama University. Xiong Jisher, who had not received much education, had been left far behind by the children. He had just asked Poplar Fruit if he could join in the learning. When Poplar Fruit came this time, the people of Xiong village were very happy. 4 or 5 strong men came down to help with the luggage. Wang Yuba climbed the mountain empty-handed, but he was so tired. It seemed that he had not exercised enough. Didn't he see that Poplar Fruit and Xiong Jisher were walking as if they were walking on flat ground? Their faces were not red and they were not panting. Wang Yuba looked at Lin Xingshan, who was walking with Fang Beibei. Although the 2 girls were panting, they could still hold on. As a man, he could not make a fool of himself in front of girls. Especially when he was still chasing Lin Xingshan. It was fine if he did not show his heroic spirit, but how could he be worse than a girl? No, I can do it. Wang Yuba gritted his teeth and continued to walk forward. The air on the mountain was very cold. Although it was not snowing, it was only a few degrees. The whistling mountain wind was always drilling into the neck, which made people feel very uncomfortable. The climate was more difficult than when Poplar Fruit came in summer. I heard from the children that there is no heating or air conditioning on the mountain. They can only freeze in winter. Lin Xingshan panted and said to Fang Beibei, "It's very pitiful. We have clothes. We are very strong. We often go up and down the mountain. We are not afraid of the cold." Xiong Jisher quickly explained. Poplar Fruit patted Xiong Jisher's shoulder with a smile and said, "That's not a reason. The conditions of the children are indeed difficult. I felt it the last time I came." However, Poplar Fruit was not a savior. He could not raise the living standards of the entire mountain stronghold to that of the city. Moreover, the government had put in a lot of effort to help the poor. According to Xiong Jiwu, there were people who came to help the poor this year. Every family received a few hundred yuan subsidy. It was not much, but it was better than nothing. This year, I'll bring a few computers to the meeting hall of the stronghold. Poplar Fruit said, "You young people should learn how to surf the internet and get in touch with the outside world. See if it's possible to set up an online shop to sell the handicrafts or local specialties of our stockade. Let me tell you, the people outside like to buy these new things." Poplar Fruit did not know how to do business, so he could not give them more help. He could only provide them with the tools to find their own way out. It was like his long-distance education. It was better to teach a man how to fish than to give him a fish. He could not save all the people in the poor mountainous areas. He could only teach them knowledge, and let them master the ability to save themselves. They were almost at the mountain stronghold. Kiki, who was wrapped in thick clothes along the way, saw the familiar grass and trees. She finally began to become active. She struggled in her father's arms and shouted to get down. There were only a few minutes left, and the mountain road here was much flatter. Poplar Fruit put Kiki down. "Brother Xiaofeng. Sister Xiaolin. Big brother Anshuan." Before they even reached the entrance of the stronghold, Chi-Chi impatiently called out loudly to her little companions who were waiting for them at the entrance of the stronghold. She moved her short little legs and started running with a kick and a jump. "Kiki, it's Kiki." The children of Xiong village were like a beehive that had exploded, making a lot of noise. Then they rushed over to Kiki. "Kiki, we missed you so much." Like the bright moon surrounded by stars, Kiki was surrounded by the children. She did not know how many times this sentence was repeated. "Kiki, why don't you come back to visit more often?" Xiong Anshuan made a fuss, pulling Kiki's hand and jumping around. Xiong Xiaolin's eyes were filled with tears. Because she was studying in the county town, she could not come back for a long time. So she did not see Kiki much. When she saw Kiki, she rushed up and hugged her, crying. However, although she was crying, her mouth could not help but open into a smile. Gidge gidge. There were too many questions that Kiki could not hear clearly. She only felt happy, laughing loudly with so many brothers and sisters. The children's voices had cut through the tranquility of the mountain where Xiong village was located. It seemed to drive away the coldness of winter, making people feel warm in their hearts. Last summer, Kiki played with them on the mountain. They played like crazy boys. Poplar Fruit explained to Fang Beibei with a smile. Fang Beibei was very tired. Climbing the mountain was a challenge for her. Now she leaned on Poplar Fruit, panting, and did not have the strength to speak. "Teacher Yang, Teacher Wang, Teacher Lin, and Teacher Fang are here too." My daughter could not squeeze in. She turned her head and saw the people behind her. She suddenly screamed. As a result, Wang Yuba and the other students and teachers who came up the mountain for the first time, who were about to collapse from exhaustion, truly felt the enthusiasm brought by the children. Compared to the reserved adults, these children were full of energy. It was as if they had never stopped talking, making people feel as if they were in a forest of hundreds of sparrows. Then Lin Xingshan distributed the small gifts they had brought with them to the children. There were also letters written by the students and teachers of the New Dimension Society, which were filled with deep emotions. The children were so excited that tears welled up in their eyes. In fact, Wang Yuba was like Xiong Jiwu, leaning towards administration. However, when he faced the children, he was also motivated by Lin Xingshan. His words of encouragement that made people's blood boil successfully stimulated the children's enthusiasm for learning. Fang Beibei naturally did not need to be mentioned. She was born with an affinity for children. Very quickly, she played together with Kiki and a group of lower-grade children. Although it was very cold outside in winter, and there was no way to play outdoor activities. Fong Beibei led them to play a number game that tested their reaction speed. This caused the children's laughter to fill the entire classroom. What about Poplar Fruit? Poplar Fruit did not accompany Fong Beibei and the rest to play with the children. He went to visit his first real martial arts master, Xiong Kahu. The old man's body was in good health. When he saw Poplar Fruit, he did not even greet him. Instead, he threw 2 Miaodao to Poplar Fruit and asked him to perform a set of knife techniques. He wanted to see if Poplar Fruit's martial arts had deteriorated during this period of time. Poplar Fruit's knife techniques had really deteriorated. His boxing skills had improved, but because he had not practiced the Miaodao for half a year, he was particularly unfamiliar with it. Poplar Fruit broke out in cold sweat. He braced himself and performed a set. Then he looked at his master's frown and hurriedly explained, "Master, it's not that I've neglected my martial arts, but that I really can't find a place to practice. But don't worry, in 2 months, I'll move into a new house. There will be a place for me to practice my knife skills." People who practice martial arts never let their fists leave their hands. This attitude of yours is unacceptable. No matter what excuses Poplar Fruit came up with, Xiong Kahu was still dissatisfied in his heart. He gave Poplar Fruit a good beating, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 922. Even when comparing photos, other people were not as deeply affected as Poplar Fruit. This was the first time he had visited the Xiong family after half a year, and he could see that the village's mental state had undergone a fundamental change. This was especially true for the children. When they first arrived, their eyes were sluggish, and they were curious when they saw strangers. However, most of them were afraid. Furthermore, he could feel a sense of confusion from them that permeated the entire village. This was a result of their lack of understanding of the people and matters outside of the mountain, their lack of planning for their own lives, and even their ignorance of the entire world. Now the children's eyes had become lively, and their speech had become more orderly. Furthermore, there was a flourishing vitality in their bodies. It was as if they had been separated from the rest of the world. Poplar Fruit felt that if they were allowed to leave the mountains and communicate with the children in the city, there shouldn't be too much of a gap between them. This was what Yangguo wanted to see, as well as the best answer to the concerns of the members of the New Dimension Society during their discussion. Poplar Fruit believed that after half a year of distance education, these children would be able to be reborn and integrate into the rhythm of modern society. Naturally, their shabby clothes and lack of food would not change. However, they would have a better future than before, wouldn't they? When they arrived at the Xiong family village, the children from the other villages rushed over to meet with the teachers. Poplar Fruit chatted with the children for a while, before leaving the scene to Lin Xingshan and the rest. Early the next morning, Poplar Fruit and Xiong Jiwu went down the mountain and met up with Meng Ping to inspect the other poor villages in Litong County. Poplar Fruit was already a millionaire with a net worth of tens of millions, yet he still had to personally work for these poor villages. Meng Ping was the #1 person in charge of Litong County's Education Bureau. Yet didn't he also use his feet to measure the size of these poor villages? Currently, the New Dimension Society and the Distance Education Charity Fund were still lacking in manpower. The expansion and institutionalization that Poplar Fruit and Wang Yuba had discussed still needed time to be perfected. Therefore, they still needed Poplar Fruit's help. Of course, Poplar Fruit was also willing to contribute. He understood that every step he took now meant one less detour for the thousands of poor students in Lidong County, who could not afford to go to school. Fong Beibei and Kiki stayed in Xiong Village. It was too tiring for them to go up and down the mountain. The two of them could not be compared to Poplar Fruit's physique. If they followed them, they would only become a burden for Poplar Fruit. Kiki had a lot of fun with her brothers and sisters in the village. They played games and told stories. Kiki became the center of attention for the children. This was especially so when she climbed onto a chair and imitated her father's speech. She stuttered and babbled as she recounted her experiences with her father in Bali. Her dancing appearance was extremely cute. Kiki learned how to walk like a cat with Daddy. Daddy said that Kiki is very good. Kiki swayed her little but as she spoke. Also, there are very beautiful clothes. Daddy said that it was a wolf, but Kiki said that it wasn't. It was a fierce dog. However, Kiki likes gold more. Gold looks better than it. Although the little fellow spoke incoherently, and she did not know how to logically arrange things in order, the children listened attentively, as if they were listening to a very interesting story. Perhaps this was a joy that only children could experience, right? Lin Xingshan and Fang Beibei were listening happily, but this was only because Kiki and the children's expressions were funny. They did not seriously listen to what Kiki said. Lin Xingshan and Fang Beibei had done a lot of homework before they came. They prepared a lot of games, such as sandbag throwing, eagle catching chicken, and so on. Although these games were not played by the children in the city, they were still classics. In an environment without equipment and tools, they still brought a lot of fun to the children. It was also because of these games that there was a kind of lively atmosphere in the cold mountain. The children were noisy and even sweating from the hot weather. In the past, such a lively scene would only occur during the spring festival, when the men in the stockade who went to work in the city came back. The elderly, women, and children would go out to welcome them. Every family would light up the lanterns to burn firewood and sharpen their knives to kill pigs and sheep. Poplar Fruit came back 3 days later. During this period, Fang Beibei took care of Kiki. Of course, Lin Xingshan also came to help. However, with Fang Beibei around, Kiki did not make a big fuss because she could not see her father. In other words, the little brat was so heartless that she did not think of her father at all. The next night after Poplar Fruit went down the mountain, Fang Beibei boiled water in the woodshed downstairs after dinner. Kiki held a small sweet potato that was still a little warm, and sat on a small wooden stool to watch it. Fang Beibei moved her and the small wooden stool far away from the dangerous area. Your father took us to the mountain and then left us in the mountain, Fang Beibei deliberately said with some sadness. Kiki, don't you miss your father these 2 days? Kiki misses Papa. Kiki seemed to be a little absent-minded as she replied. I don't believe it. How much does Kiki miss him? Fang Beibei shook her head and continued to ask with a smile. Very, very much. Kiki finally came back to her senses. She handed the sweet potato to Sister Beibei, opened her arms and said with a huff, I do miss him. She seemed to be expressing her longing for her father, as deep as the sea of stars. Pfft, Fang Beibei suddenly laughed. She wanted to tease the little brat. Unexpectedly, there was a call from outside. Kiki, Kiki, quickly come and see. It was Xiong Xiaofeng's voice. His voice sounded very excited. Dania dug up a cicada. It was probably a cicada larva hidden under the frozen ground in winter. It was not some novel animal. If it was Lin Xingshan, he would still keep a respectful distance from it. Only these simple children would want to show it to everyone as if it was a treasure. Hey Kiki, Kiki is here. Hearing Brother Xiong Xiaofeng's call, Kiki immediately became excited. She did not even look at the sweet potato that was just handed to Sister Beibei. She happily stood up and ran outside. Fang Beibei ran 2 steps after her. Fortunately, Kiki did not bump into the door sill. Only then did she feel relieved. Fang Beibei shook her head and muttered in amusement and anger. You still say you miss your father. You're just like your father. Once there's something you like, you'll become heartless. Fortunately, this situation did not last for too long. The next night, when Kiki fell asleep, mainly because she was tired from playing during the day, Poplar Fruit pushed open the door and appeared in front of Fang Beibei. Achoo! What greeted him was Fang Beibei's muffled sneeze and her pitiful eyes. Uncle, I'm sick. Fang Beibei wrapped the blanket around her body and leaned against the edge of the bed sickly. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 923. As the saying goes, you reap what you sow. Fang Beibei's father, who used to be a primary school math teacher, stood to the side with his hands clasped behind his back. He was politely talking to Yang Guo, who was digging with her but in the dirt. At this time, Fang Beibei's somewhat dry voice came from the small box that Yang Guo had stuffed into the back pocket of her jeans. Ahem, uncle, I want to drink water. Right away, right away. This was the baby listening device that Poplar Fruit bought when Kiki was just born. It could only transmit sound in one direction, so Poplar Fruit shouted very loudly. He wanted Fong Bebe to hear him upstairs. Poplar Fruit turned to look at Father Fong. He held the shovel with one hand and scratched his head with the other. Go, go. I know you're not there in person, go. Father Fong waved his hand and said. After receiving permission, Poplar Fruit smiled and ran into the house. At this time, Mother Fong was carrying Kiki and holding the cantaloupe that made Kiki drool. The two almost bumped into each other. Bebe wants to drink water. Poplar Fruit bowed embarrassedly and then rushed into the house. Mother Fong pursed her lips and looked at Poplar Fruit's back. She patted Kiki's back and said with a smile. Don't rush, eat slowly. Don't be as impatient as your unreliable father. She walked to the stone chair in the yard and sat down. She said to Father Fong, look at him, he can't do great things with his personality. He's not calm, he's reckless. I don't know what makes your daughter so loyal to him. Okay, don't be sarcastic here. Let me tell you, for your daughter to find a man who loves her so much, you should thank Buddha. Father Fong actually spoke up for Poplar Fruit. Then isn't Bebe's illness caused by him? Where could he have gone? Why did he have to bring her to that remote and desolate place in Guishan province? The weather is so cold. Aren't you looking for trouble by running up the mountain? Mother Fong muttered. As her father's most loyal little guard, Kiki didn't make a sound at this moment. She focused on using her cute little front teeth to nibble on the cantaloupe in her grandmother's hand. It was so delicious. It had been 3 days since Poplar Fruit and Fong Bebe had returned from Xiong village. Originally, they did not intend to stay on the mountain for too long. Poplar Fruit would return from his inspection, and Fong Bebe's cold had prompted them to choose not to stay on. Kiki was naturally reluctant to let her go. However, it seemed that she was affected by Fong Bebe. She caught a little cold when she went down the mountain, and it became more serious on the way back. She had to take care of the 2 sick people on the way back. Poplar Fruit and Wang Yuba took turns to drive back to Yangcheng. His inspection in Lidong County and Mengping was not optimistic. Among the poor children, there were close to 200 of them who lived in worse conditions than the children in Xiong village. Not only were these villages located deep in the mountains, it was difficult to travel. The infrastructure there was a complete mess. Not to mention the internet, even the basic electricity couldn't meet the needs of large appliances. Even if Poplar Fruit wanted to help them, he was powerless. The other children were still fine. Most of them lived in mountain villages that were slightly closer to the county. There were 1 or 2 villages that were bigger than Xiong village, but the standards of the teachers there were too low. Not to mention the children in the city and the distance education. There was still a huge gap between them and the worst school in Lidong County for the children of the old textile factory workers. Apart from the close to 200 children, Poplar Fruit and Mengping had discussed a plan to expand the infrastructure after the Chinese New Year. They wanted to achieve universal distance education for all 4,000 children before the arrival of April. Naturally, the other 200 children were not abandoned. Poplar Fruit would continue to think of ways to help them. However, this required time and inspiration. Poplar Fruit, or rather, the New Translation Road and the Distance Education Charity Fund, had a heavy burden on their shoulders. On one hand, they had to send out a large number of people to help build modern educational facilities in the mountain villages. Although Fat Dragon and Kai Simin had quite a bit of experience, they still needed to recruit more people. With just the 2 of them, even if they worked themselves to death, they would not be able to complete such a difficult task before the arrival of April. On the other hand, Poplar Fruit and Wang Yuba had to continue expanding the volunteer teachers of the New Dimension Society. Last semester, they had recruited many people. At that time, they felt that the number was somewhat excessive. However, from the looks of it now, there were over 4,000 children. This wasn't something that a few dozen volunteer teachers could accomplish. After all, they weren't full-time teachers. After receiving Mengping's notification, Poplar Fruit had been constantly considering the future development of distance education. Don't look at how it was currently only in Litong County. Poplar Fruit believed that as long as their distance education maintained the right pace of development, There would be a day when it would spread throughout the entire country, or even the entire world. Poplar Fruit didn't dare to think about that. This way, the limitations of distance education would be revealed. It was a charitable act, which meant that the teaching staff would be mainly college volunteers. As for the college volunteers, regardless of how long it would take for them to become teachers, they wouldn't be able to spend all their time preparing lessons for the children. Therefore, they could only change their way of thinking. Poplar Fruit had always had an idea. It was similar to his extracurricular expansion. The students would be able to watch videos and learn by themselves. Naturally, the lessons wouldn't be self-learning. Poplar Fruit could get the student volunteers to teach the children. The videos for the lessons would be recorded beforehand, and would be no different from a normal lesson. However, the teachers who recorded the videos wouldn't have to face the children directly. Instead, the student volunteers would be the ones to face the children. They would control the progress of the videos and explain at any time to the children, answering any questions the children might have while watching the videos. Not only that, the children would be able to review the videos themselves after returning home. This way, the student volunteers would only need to be trained in the usage of the equipment before they could start teaching. To these college students, they wouldn't even need to review the primary school lessons, and would be able to answer the children's questions. This was just a preliminary idea, and Poplar Fruit still needed to discuss it with Fat Dragon and the other members of the New Dimension Society before he could come up with an effective plan. This would have to wait until after the Chinese New Year, when everyone returned to Yangcheng. At this moment, he was worried about Fang Beibei's condition. After returning from the Xiong family, Fang Beibei's condition had been recurring. Although it wasn't a serious illness, it had lasted for 4 days, causing her to be listless and listless. Even Kiki, who had the same cold as her, had recovered. With regards to Fang Beibei's condition, her parents were extremely dissatisfied. Furthermore, it was already the winter holidays, so Fang Beibei shouldn't be staying at home. Was it appropriate for her to continue living with Poplar Fruit near the school? Therefore, Fang Beibei was ordered to return home by her parents. However, the future son-in-law Poplar Fruit had also arrived. Father Fang prepared a house for him, and Poplar Fruit unabashedly moved in. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations greater than or equal to. Chapter 924. Just as Poplar Fruit threw out a question that shocked, embarrassed, nervous, and worried Fang Beibei, a group of people were sitting around the table in the conference room in Changzhou City, a place that Poplar Fruit had visited before. They were smoking and looking gloomy. Actually, it was not a matter of life and death. It was just that Mango TV had spent a huge sum of money to import a variety show, Where Are We Going, Dad? From Korean MBC TV station. They had to be extremely careful and not mess up the show, because if they messed it up, none of them would be able to escape being scolded for worshipping foreigners. The director had already been confirmed. It would be Xie Dikue, the great director who had been the producer of popular variety shows such as Sing If You Want and The Metamorphosis would be the director and producer. They had no choice but to give him the role. After all, he was the only director in the TV station who had a wealth of experience in outdoor reality shows. Director Xie had his own team. However, in such an important period of preparation for the show, there were still many leaders and important people in the TV station who joined in to provide suggestions and ideas. However, even so, director Xie did not have much confidence in the show's viewership ratings and reputation. Firstly, the pace of this show is too slow. I've seen 1 or 2 episodes of the original show from Korean TV. The variety style is too intense. It's very difficult to show this in an outdoor reality show. Director Xie said. Secondly, the children participating are too young and naive. It's very difficult to create a strong conflict and dramatic plot like The Metamorphosis. However, many colleagues did not agree with what director Xie said. Most of the female colleagues in his team expressed their love for the show. The loving or clumsy interaction between the father and the child is the main attraction of this show. Director Xie gradually understood the important factors that attracted the audience. Therefore, the selection of the Xing father and Xing baby was the most important step in the show's preparation. Director Xie even placed it first in the entire show's preparation sequence. It's all right. As long as you confirm who you want to invite, our station will do our best to invite them for you. In fact, even if I personally invite them, we won't refuse. Station head Lu knocked on the table and consoled. In the early stages of a program, before they made a name for themselves, it wasn't easy to invite a heavyweight guest. Moreover, a program like, Where Are We Going, Dad? Required adults to bring their children along to participate. This wasn't a joke. Celebrities would have many concerns. On one hand, they were worried about the safety of their children. On the other hand, they were worried about whether there would be any accidents on the program that would affect their children's and their own image. Reality TV shows needed to show their true selves. It was already hard to control, not to mention those ignorant children. The TV station gathered information on all the celebrities and their children in the country. They compiled it into a booklet and sent it to Director Xie for him to choose. Although it might be a little difficult for us to invite guests for our program, Fang Qiu said. Director Xie rubbed his chin and said with a frown, but when it comes to choosing children, it's better to have nothing than to have something substandard. Yes, first of all, he must have a good personality and be obedient. Someone suggested. No, that's not necessarily the case. Director Xie waved his hand and said, they can't all have the same personality. It's best if every child has their own personality. Only then can the conflict in the plot be reflected. Only then will it be interesting to watch. If they are all obedient children who are exactly the same, who would be willing to watch? Every child is an angel. There's no distinction between good and bad personalities, and there's no distinction between good and bad looks. Of course, their fathers are all celebrities, so they won't be too bad. Therefore, these aren't within the scope of our consideration, Director Xie said. However, I think we need to do some research on this age. Director Xie turned to look at Teacher He, who was sitting at the side. He Ling, I'm not targeting you. It's just that after watching the original Korean program, I feel that this is indeed a problem that needs to be thought about. Director Xie smiled apologetically and said, there's no problem with Poplar Fruit and his father that you recommended. Poplar Fruit has a certain level of influence, and was also a popular figure last year. However, isn't his child a little too young? She is indeed young. Teacher He nodded and smiled. According to the information, she was born on April 28, 2011. She's not even 2 years old yet. However, Uncle Xie, if you watch the November episode of the Fast Forward, you'll fall in love with his daughter. She's really too cute. I won't deny that. Director Xie nodded and said, however, you have to understand that a reality show is different from a fast forward. It doesn't have a script. The child is too young, so it'll be difficult for her to cooperate with us to complete the mission. Perhaps I didn't think it through. Teacher He smiled and said, it's all right, Uncle Xie. Let's go with your plan. Teacher He did not expect Director Xie to definitely choose Poplar Fruit as a guest. He simply felt that Poplar Fruit and Kiki were very suitable for the show, so he recommended them. Regardless of whether they're suitable or not, even if they were invited, Poplar Fruit might not agree to participate. Teacher He secretly laughed in his heart. He remembered the scene when Poplar Fruit told him in a serious tone that he wanted to quit the modeling industry to focus on his studies. The two did not lose contact after the show. On the contrary, Teacher He and Poplar Fruit's relationship got better and better. They would talk on the phone from time to time and interact on Weibo. Teacher He even stood up for Poplar Fruit after he was maliciously hyped up by others. Poplar Fruit had invited Teacher He to visit several times, but Teacher He was never free. This time, Teacher He recommended Poplar Fruit on a whim. He did not even mention it to Poplar Fruit. In fact, he was very nervous. He was worried about how to persuade Poplar Fruit if he was chosen. Would Poplar Fruit be furious if he acted first and reported later? Just as Teacher He's imagination was running wild, a director's eyes suddenly lit up. He said, speaking of Poplar Fruit, I thought of a model called Zhang Liang. He and his son might be suitable for the show. Zhang Liang was not famous in the entertainment industry, but he was famous in the modeling industry. He was the first Chinese model to appear in Milan Fashion Week. Before Poplar Fruit, he was one of the leading male models in the country. Previously, he had been compared to Poplar Fruit. However, compared to the sensation that Poplar Fruit caused overseas, Zhang Liang paled in comparison. How old is his son? Director Xie asked. Let me check. He has to be between 4 and 6 years old. Children around 7 or 8 years old tend to lose their childishness, and children under 4 years old are too ignorant to complete the task, Director Xie concluded. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 925. After hesitating for a long time, Fang Bebe bit her lower lip and asked Poplar Fruit, "Do you really want to go?" Poplar Fruit also sat up cross-legged, and the two of them sat facing each other on the bed. He scratched his head and said, "I didn't want to go so early, but didn't the news of our conflict appear on the internet from time to time? My mom was worried, so she kept asking me to bring someone back to see you no matter what. Then I thought that we are getting along quite well." Poplar Fruit pulled Fang Bebe's small hand that was holding the quilt and put it in his big palm. He smiled and said, "Although we haven't reached the stage of talking about marriage, we are all aiming to get married in the future, aren't we? It's not a bad thing to see each other's families, right? Sooner or later, we will have to see each other." "I'm still at your house," Poplar Fruit laughed and said. "Weren't you chased out by your parents with a broom?" "Don't talk about my parents like that." Fang Bebe pinched the flesh in Poplar Fruit's palm and said angrily, "I didn't say that I don't want to go, I'm just scared." "What if your mom doesn't like me?" Fang Bebe lowered her head and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito. "Silly, why wouldn't she like you?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "You have a gentle, virtuous, kind, and cute personality, so you are the best candidate for a wife in her heart. Let me tell you, my mom raised my sister based on you, but unfortunately, my sister has a strong personality, so now she is the one who makes the decisions at home." Fang Bebe couldn't help but laugh. When she laughed, the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, which made Poplar Fruit's heart beat faster. He couldn't resist the love in his heart. He leaned forward and leaned his head slightly to the side. He stretched out his hands and pressed them on Fang Bebe's shoulders. Just as Fang Bebe raised her head, Poplar Fruit gently kissed the corner of her mouth without moving his tongue. It was just a gentle kiss. Fang Bebe was kissed by Poplar Fruit until her body went limp. Her arms hung down weakly, and she raised her head. Her eyes were blurred, and her hair fell down like a black waterfall. In the end, she was pressed down on the bed by Poplar Fruit. The two of them lay facing each other, gently feeling each other's breathing. "Uncle," Fang Bebe said in a muffled voice, "I still have a cold." "I'm fine. It's best if you pass your cold to me, then you'll be healthy." Poplar Fruit smiled, his right hand gently stroking Fang Bebe's back through her soft long hair. "I've decided." Fang Bebe's two hands grabbed Poplar Fruit's left hand and said with a grin, "I agree to go home with you." "Really?" Poplar Fruit was overjoyed. He pulled his girlfriend into his embrace and said with a smile, "That's great. Don't be happy so early." Fang Bebe giggled. She patted Poplar Fruit's chest and said, "If you want to bring me home, you have to convince my parents first." Poplar Fruit let out an ah sound, and then asked with a puzzled look, "Isn't it just 998? Go to hell." Fang Bebe unhappily clenched her two small fists and punched Poplar Fruit's body. "Ha ha." Just when they were having a good time, Father Fang and Mother Fang below began to get restless, especially Mother Fang. This was especially true for Mother Fang. After Chi-Chi finished eating the melon, she refused to curl up in her grandmother's arms. She struggled to get Mother Fang to release her, so that she could study the little ants on the ground. Mother Fang then began to ramble on and on with Father Fang. "Old Fang, why do you think this Poplar Fruit has been up there for so long and hasn't come down yet?" After asking a few questions, Mother Fang saw that Father Fang was still digging around with his bag of melon seeds. She pushed his shovel and said, "Hey old Fang, I'm talking to you. Are you listening?" "What?" Father Fang finally reacted. He turned his head and asked unhappily, Mother Fong repeated her question. Hey, why are you always so worried? Didn't I just say it? Poplar fruit, go up and give Bebe some water to drink. Father Fong waved his hand and said, Give her water to drink for more than an hour? In fact, less than half an hour had passed, but Mother Fong said impatiently, Is your daughter a human or a water buffalo? An hour? Father Fong was shocked and asked. He was busy with his melon planting just now. How could he have the time to calculate the time? Oh, you just found out. Mother Fong said disdainfully. You should just fall into this pit. Then why don't you ask him to come down? Father Fong said. You do it. Your daughter is the son-in-law you invited. Mother Fong said righteously. Father Fong was speechless. He squatted down again and said in a muffled voice, Forget it, young man. Give them more space. Don't disturb them all the time. Hey you. Mother Fong was really angry with this old man. She waved her hand, shook her head and snorted. You only know how to be lazy. Okay, I'll ask him to come down. Poplar fruit, come down and eat some melons. Mother Fong stood in the courtyard and shouted at Fong Bebe's window. Your mother is shouting. Poplar fruit sat up and smiled at Fong Bebe. I'll go down with you. How can I get better if I'm always cooped up in the room? Fong Bebe also got up and said. Poplar fruit handed her a pair of long johns and a down jacket. After Fong Bebe changed, the two of them went downstairs together. Mom, where's the melon? Fong Bebe held Poplar fruit's hand and walked out of the door on the first floor. If you want to eat melon, cut it yourself. You haven't recovered from your cold. Why did you come down? Mother Fong said angrily when she saw the two of them snuggling up to each other. I'll go cut it. Poplar fruit smiled and turned back into the house. Fong Bebe walked down the stairs and came to the courtyard. She smiled and blocked Kiki with her hand. I'm almost recovered from my cold, Fong Bebe said. Besides, I have to come out to breathe some fresh air. It's easier to recover, isn't it? Kiki, don't get too close to me. I'm afraid I'll catch a cold again. Ah. Sister Bebe, don't come over. Kiki had no intention of hugging Fong Bebe. She shouted anxiously. You'll step on it. Step on what? Fong Bebe squatted down curiously and looked at the cement ground in front of Kiki. It turned out to be a long line of ants. She didn't know what they were busy with. Humph. Mother Fong snorted and didn't say anything. Kiki, what are these ants doing? Fong Bebe touched Kiki's little head and helped her pull the scarf around her neck. Otherwise, the scarf would be stained with mud. Ants, they're moving. Kiki thought for a long time. Finally, she looked at Mother Fong and confirmed. They weren't moving. Mother Fong just casually said it. She didn't expect the little girl to believe it. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *, that you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.